Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of July 8th, 2019. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God.
Thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Buss?
Present.
Commissioner Cohan?
Here.
Commissioner Lanson?
Here.
Commissioner Newman?
Here.
Chair McMahon?
Here. Thank you. Are there any written comments, announcements, or continuances at this time?
Chair, we have a supplemental packet this evening that was released shortly before the meeting. It relates to items 7B on the agenda, as well as a correction to the conditions of approval for item 7C.
Okay.
Other than that, there are no further written comments or no.
Okay, thank you. Public comments, item number 5. Looks like we have some public comments. Thank you. All right, and as I call your name, Mr. Kidwai, you know the routine, your name and city of residence. Nick Kidwai, please come up.
I begin invoking the name of God, the most beneficial, most merciful. My name is Nick Iqbal Kidwai, resident of Newbury Park since 1979 and executive director of Concerned Citizen of Thousand Oaks since 1991. Have missed a lot of meetings recently, but believe it or not, I've been watching them all at home and not too happy about what I see. That's why I'm here. 3 minutes. This used to be 5 minutes. But I'll take whatever it is. I'm here for one simple reason. I'm really sad to see that no other citizen has come forward. We are being surrounded by cities and school districts that have voting by district. But this body has not even touched about it, including the city council, of course. Our school board has not only accepted it, but in the November election, they are going by the district rules. There's going to be 2 seats, and they will be for 2 areas. And why am I for it? It's very simple. Cost. It reduces the cost of the elections if you only have to go to 1/5 of the electorate. That's what the electorate used to be, and that's why we had Ed Jones and other people walking down the homes and saying hello, and was flesh-to-flesh contact. But now, with 40,000 homes, it's almost an impossible thing. You can do it, but pretty much a whole year. And by the time, if I go right now, and the election is in November, they will completely forget who came and what was said. The Ventura County Star is almost a bogus paper, but it still gives some information. And that's why Simi Valley, Moore Park, Camarillo, they all have gone to the district voting. You people have not even considered it. Not even considered it. Maybe talking amongst yourselves, but not officially. So I would appreciate if somebody will ask to have this on the agenda. I know you are the Planning Commission, not the City Council. What? Something is wrong. 3 minutes and 14 seconds left? Or I'm speaking too slowly. So that's what I'm saying, is it would make it easy for candidates, it would make it easy for the residents to know who their representative is. I know there is a little bit of talk that, well, if I live in Lang Ranch, I will speak in favor of Lang Ranch and against other projects and stuff like that. No, the city council people are pretty fair, and they are basically going to do what is the right thing. And people work with each other, and they still are in charge of the whole city. So I would really appreciate if you folks talk to your bosses on Tuesday, who are the bosses on Tuesday, to put this on the agenda. I would love to have it done by this council election of 2020, but if not, wait 2 years down the road. I have a potential candidate staring at me. I think he likes the shorter version versus the 5 at large. We have a city employee kind of lost. You see so many interesting things that you don't see on the camera. The camera is just focused on one. But here you can look around, and if you don't get in trouble with the chair, you can comment a little bit. So I will finish with about a minute remaining, that we don't need to go to court to make changes. That's what has happened with some of the other people, is either they've gone to court or have threatened litigation that they have gone to the district-wide election. I would really ask you to do that. Thank you for letting me speak. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Mr. Kidwai. Item number, where are we? 6A, the consent calendar. 6A is the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion or a comment?
Yeah, I would move we approve the minutes.
You have to push the button. Can you push the button? Okay.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, next we have item 7. 7A, will the clerk please open the public hearing?
Item 7A, hearing having been advertised as required by law, is hereby opened to consider case number SUP 2019-70033, a special use permit to allow on-site sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages at an approved restaurant, Taboo Shabu, located within the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Specific Plan, SP 20, located at 2920 East Thousand Oaks Boulevard A, and the applicant is Taboo Shabu.
Thank you. And the planning technician 2, Stephen Barrington.
Chair, if I may just introduce Mr. Berrigan. This is his first time before this body in about 3 years. So he may be new to some of our new commissioners, but he's been with the city an extended period of time, and he'll be presenting items 7A and 7C this evening. And with that, I'll turn it over to Steve, who will present this item.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair McMahon and members of the commission. I'm the project planner tonight, Stephen Berrigan. As mentioned for your consideration tonight, a special use permit application has been filed to allow the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages for an approved restaurant, Taboo Shabu, located at 2920 East Thousand Oaks Boulevard. The land use table in Appendix A of SP 20, or the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Specific Plan, requires any request for alcohol within 400 feet of a residentially zoned property be considered by the Planning Commission In this case, the restaurant is approximately 300 feet from the nearest residential property. This next slide demonstrates the overall location. It's on Thousand Oaks Boulevard. The approved restaurant is situated at the southeast portion of the Oaks Plaza, which basically on the corner of Skyline and Thousand Oaks Boulevard, in the suite fronts Thousand Oaks Boulevard. The restaurant and the residential area are separated by the shopping center parking lot, a commercial building, and Crescent Way. So if you look at the map, this all totals to about 300 feet. As mentioned, the restaurant is located within the Oak Plaza. Within Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan area, restaurants are approved with a ministerial process or a building permit, as long as the project complies with the specific plan and all other zoning and development regulations, including parking. In this case, the approved restaurant has met all of the development standards. The restaurant is 1,558 square feet and is currently under construction. So if you take a look at the picture, that's what the inside of Tabu Shabu looks like right now, at least a week ago. As previously mentioned, the applicant is proposing to allow the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with food service. This is the front view of the subject restaurant, taken in the middle of Thousand Oaks Boulevard. No exterior changes are being proposed. The project qualifies for a Class 1 categorical exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act, otherwise known as CEQA. The request will not have a detrimental impact to the shopping center or the surrounding neighborhood, since this is an incidental use to the proposed restaurant. The serving of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with food service should not generate noise, parking, or traffic impacts greater than those associated with the approved commercial activity. Therefore, it is recommended that the Planning Commission approve SUP 2019-70033 based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval in the attached resolution. Staff is available for any questions.
Do we have any questions of staff? Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Berrigan, thanks for your report. Just a quick question. Did you get any response from any of the homeowners that are within the prescribed area to this application?
No.
And what was the radius, if you know, that those notices were sent out?
500 feet?
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Thank you. And now we ask for the applicant's representative to speak. You will have 15 minutes. Can you please come to the podium and state your name and city of residence? Yina Zarowitz.
Hello, my name is Yina Zarowitz, and I'm from Oak Park. My husband Jeremy and I are the proud owners of Tabu Shabu, and we would like to thank the members of the Planning Commission for hearing our case tonight. We are a family-owned business, and we are so excited to open a Shabu Shabu restaurant here in Thousand Oaks. We are currently under construction and hoping to open doors in late September. For those of you who don't know what Shabu Shabu is, it is a Japanese hot pot style cuisine where you cook your own meat and veggies in a broth in front of you. It is a delicious, healthy, and interactive experience, and such a meal is best complemented with a variety of teas, imported soda, and ideally alcoholic beverages imported from Japanese distributors. This dining concept does not exist anywhere within our vicinity, and we are extremely grateful for this opportunity to present our restaurant and concept before you for a chance to receive an alcohol permit. We reviewed the draft conditions and will commit ourselves to take every precaution necessary to ensure compliance. In closing, we believe Tabu Shabu is a truly geographically unique concept that will serve the local community, and we'll do everything we can to ensure that we are responsible permit holders. Thank you so much for this opportunity and your careful consideration.
Thank you. Hold on just a moment. Let me see if there's any questions. Do we have any questions? Okay. Then you can sit down. Now we go to public comments. I don't have any public comments. Is that correct? Okay. Is there anything else that staff would like to mention about this? Because it's going awful fast here.
Staff has no further comments at this time.
Okay. In that case, do we want to have a motion or a discussion?
I'll make a motion.
You're entitled to a rebuttal. Would you like a rebuttal? Okay. Okay, we want to make sure you get, your rights. And all right, commissioners. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move that we adopt a resolution approving request for SUP 2019-7033 based on the findings and conditions described in the resolution. Thank you.
Is there any discussion? Can you get us a vote, please?
Motion carries 5-0.
I do believe that's a record. Yes, I got it. However, any aggrieved party who wishes to appeal the Planning Commission's decision may do so by filing an appeal within the Community Development Department within 10 days. I guess that's it. That was quick and easy. Good luck with the restaurant. All right. So now we have item 7B. Will the clerk please open the public hearing?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 7B, case number SUP 2019-70299, to allow construction of a gas station and 7-Eleven convenience store with hours of operation from 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. located at 2198 North Moore Park Road. The applicant is Megdal Thousand Oaks LLC, 7-Eleven.
Okay. All right. And would you like to introduce?
I would. Thank you, Chair. So presenting this item is Planning Manager Steve Kearns.
Thank you, and good evening, Chair McMahon, members of the Planning Commission. As mentioned, the item before you this evening is a special use permit requesting construction of a service station and a 7-Eleven convenience store. The convenience store is not requesting the sale of any alcohol or vaping products. They are requesting hours of operation from 5 a.m. to 2 a.m., which is a reduction in hours from 24 to 21 hours from the previous request. As shown here in this slide, this demonstrates the previous project that was before the Planning Commission on April 1st and the proposed project before you this evening. The previous request included a 24-hour operation daily. This request is 21 hours operation daily.
Excuse me if I may, Chair. We do have a statement from Commissioner Cohan, really quick. I apologize, Mr. Kearns.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns. Before the presentation goes on, I'd like to recuse myself from today's hearing. My employer was hired by the applicant. While I did not receive any money directly from the applicant or property owner, my employer was compensated for time spent on the proposed project. I want to avoid any impression on the merits of the proposed project. Therefore, in abundance of caution, I will recuse myself from today's hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. Get back to the previous project. There was no tobacco, vape, or alcohol. In this iteration, there is vape, no vape or alcohol products, but there is tobacco. The lot size was demonstrated as 19,943 square feet, which was a waiver at that time because of the service station criteria requiring 20,000 square foot minimum. The applicant has had the lot size calculated by a licensed engineer and certified as being 20,043 square feet, so it's no longer a waiver. In the previous project, the applicant mailed notices to property owners within 300 feet. And for this project, the community outreach was mailed to those within 500 feet. Shown here is the vicinity, excuse me, of the project location. It's at the southeast corner of Avenida de las Flores and Moore Park Road. This is an aerial perspective. The project site is delineated in the red boundary. It is bounded by 3 streets: Calle Jasmine to the east, Avenida de las Flores to the north, and Moore Park Road to the west. Adjacent across the street and to the northeast are single-family homes. To the north is a commercial shopping center. To the northwest is Thousand Oaks High School. Across Moore Park Road to the west are additional single-family homes.
I'm
And
sorry,
to the south,
Mr. Brannigan, can you hold on? We can hear you over there, and it's very distracting. Okay, please continue.
and to the south, there's a medical office building. And I understand we've heard this not too long ago, but I'll go over the background for those as a refresher and for those in the audience. The property is Zone C1, which is a neighborhood commercial shopping center designation. The site was a former service station, which was approved in 1968, began construction in 1970, and then the building was actually demolished in 2005. The property has remained vacant since then. The project was, the land was contaminated by the fuel tanks, and remediation work began in 2009, and it was certified as clean in 2014. On April 1st of this year, the Planning Commission considered this project with a very similar project. From site planning and architectural standpoint, it's the same. There's some minor changes as described earlier. The Planning Commission denied that project without prejudice at that evening. By doing so, that allows the applicant to come back with the same or similar project within a 6-month period. The applicant resubmitted the new application a week later on April 8th, and it's here before you this evening. The next few slides are photographs of the parcel. This is across Moore Park Road, looking east through the site. This is looking southeasterly through the site across the intersection of Flores and Moore Park Road. Shown here is the shopping center to the north across Avenida de las Flores. And this is across the intersection with Thousand Oaks High School in the backdrop. Again, this is the site plan. There's been no change to the plan since the April 1st meeting. As shown, there's perimeter landscaping along Moore Park Road and around to Avenida de las Flores. Additional landscaping along the perimeter on Calle Jasmine. A trash enclosure is located in this area. The convenience store building is shown here in the southeasterly portion of the property. There are 3 pump islands and a canopy structure above. And then there are 2 driveways, a shared driveway off of Moore Park Road, shown here, and another driveway off of Avenida de las Flores in this location. There are also 2 driveways, one on Moore Park Road, curb cuts at least, that are existing in this area, and one on Calle Jasmine in this area, which are to be abandoned. And Ms. Naum will discuss the driveway ingress and egress issues.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kearns, and good evening. So based on testimony presented at the April 1st Planning Commission meeting, and after careful review of the city, county, state, and national best engineering practices, staff is recommending the driveway on Flores be designed for right-in, right-out with a channelizing island. The driveway would be signed for no left turns in for westbound traffic. Well, it's okay. Well, we're missing one slide, so I'll just continue. The property is unique. It is bounded by 3 public streets, Moore Park, Flores, and Jasmine. No other service station in the city is bounded by 3 public streets. The 90-foot frontage is very short. City driveway spacing standards require driveways to be installed no closer than 150 feet from another driveway. Best engineering practices recommend commercial driveways be located no closer than 100 feet from an intersection. The limitations of a narrow frontage is that a vehicle has very little time to enter a travel lane while negotiating potential conflicts with other vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. That's the bus. Okay. Well, we're missing another great slide. Oh, okay, well, anyway. There is a bus stop located directly west of the proposed driveway. A bus arrives at the start and at the end of school and throughout the day. When the bus is stopped, it blocks the view of vehicles exiting from the site.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Students walk to school from the surrounding neighborhood, and many students are dropped off on Cali Jasmine and walk the block to school. This picture was taken last week. Summer school's in session, so the pedestrian traffic was very low. During the school year, between 250 and 300 students walk through the intersection each day. This number will increase if there's a 7-Eleven on the corner. The purpose of this slide is to illustrate how, with the installation of the monument sign, it will block the view of vehicles turning from Moore Park Road. Per state law, gasoline stations must clearly advertise the price of gasoline, and if the station is located at an intersection, the advertising must be clearly visible from each street of the intersection. Basically, this means that the applicant will be permitted to install a sign at the southeast corner, which in turn will impede sight distance at the proposed driveway on Flores. The next several slides demonstrate the 6 points of conflict a driver would need to negotiate prior to making a left turn from the driveway. Before a car can make a left turn out of the driveway to turn into either the left turn lane or travel into the through or right turn lanes, there can be no more than 3 cars in the left turn pocket, or the path of travel will be blocked. So the first point of conflict is between the southbound right turn from Cali Jasmine. The second point is the northbound left turn from Cali Jasmine. The third is the westbound through lane on Flores. The fourth is the southbound left turn from Moore Park Road. The fifth is the eastbound through on Flores. And the sixth is the northbound right turn, which again, in addition to this conflict, there will be limited sight distance due to the monument sign located on the corner. When a vehicle is waiting for all 6 points of conflict to clear and the left turn pocket to reduce to less than 3 cars, traffic congestion will occur within the property. This traffic congestion will be in conflict with a high number of high school students walking in the parking lot. It may take a long time to make a left out, so the drivers may become impatient, which leads to drivers making poor decisions. A right-in, right-out driveway allows vehicles to exit quicker, reduces the congestion and the potential for accidents on the property. The advantages of a right-in, right-out driveway include the reduction in the number of conflict points. If there are any collisions, they will be less severe. It reduces pedestrian conflicts both on-site and at the driveway, and reduces the wait time, which reduces the amount of stress the drivers are experiencing, which leads to better driver behavior. And to answer the most pressing question, yes, U-turns are permitted on Moore Park Road. So vehicles leaving the property that want to go south of Moore Park will exit Moore Park driveway and make a U-turn at the signal. There are 29 service stations in the city, and about half have restrictions at all other driveways. None of the 29 service stations have front 3 public streets, is adjacent to a bus stop, and located across from a high school, which is why staff is recommending the driveway on Flores be designed as a right-in, right-out driveway. This concludes my part of the presentation, and now I'll hand it back to Mr. Kearns.
Thank you, Ms. Naum. Back to the project details themselves. The project from the April 1st iteration is the same. The proposed canopy trellis is 17 feet tall, flat roof, metal canopy. The overall height, the highest point of the convenience store is 29 feet, with the balance of the building being at 19 feet. The east elevation incorporates pitch roof design elements as well as decorative stone material on the facade. And on the front facade is decorative stone and 2 trellis work with landscape materials. These are the renderings the applicant has submitted. This is looking southeasterly through the site. As you can see, landscaping in the front, the proposed trellis canopy and the pump stations. the front of the convenience store with the decorative stone materials, and in the back portion of the property is a privacy wall along the Kai Jasmine property line. A perspective looking southwest of the site from the intersection of Kai Jasmine and Avenida de las Flores. You can see the trellis cover, the pump islands, the privacy wall here on the east portion of the property, the front of the convenience store, and as demonstrated in the next slide, there'll be trees added according to the plan in this location along Kai Jasmine. This item is before the Planning Commission because it involves a request for a service station, and all service stations require a special use permit to be considered by the Planning Commission. The project also requires a setback waiver along the Kai Jasmine frontage. And the purpose of the special use permit is to determine that the proposed uses are appropriate for the area and ensure that they're compatible and they do not create conflicts or adverse impacts. In this case, the surrounding properties to the north is a commercial shopping center. To the northeast and east are single-family homes. Immediately adjacent to the south is medical office building. And then the west, across Moore Park Road, are more single-family homes. And then to the northwest is the Thousand Oaks High School. In reviewing service station requests, we used service station design criteria used to implement the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code. This was first established in 1967. It evaluated all new or modified service stations. It ensures compatibility with existing surrounding uses and maintains appropriate development standards. And this criteria was revised in 1969, again in 1970, and then in 1972, which is the current version that we're using to review this station. Key difference between the other versions and the 1972 version is that in 72, a minimum lot size range was established from 20,000 to 40,000 square foot. And as mentioned, the applicant has had the area recalculated and demonstrated that the lot size is over 20,000 square feet. So it meets the minimum lot size requirements, and this is no longer a waiver. The municipal code requires that the buildings should be set back at least 100 feet from the center line of all streets. And in this case, there are 3 street frontages on Moore Park Road, Avenida de las Flores, and Kai Jasmine. The Kai Jasmine street setback is 40 feet from the center line, but it does meet all of the setbacks and development standards. The architectural design incorporates flat and pitch roof elements, which give it horizontal and vertical interest. Large storefront windows, decorative stone and earth tone materials, which is consistent with the city's architectural design guidelines. The canopy structure, however, is inconsistent and out of character with the neighborhood. And the metal roofing on the proposed convenience store and canopy structure are inconsistent with the surrounding properties and the purpose and intent of the C1 zone, which states that centers are required to fit into the residential pattern and not create architectural or traffic conflicts. In this case, the material is out of character. The city's architectural guidelines do allow metal roofs in commercial areas in certain circumstances, as long as they're consistent and compatible with the area. In this case, residential zones do not allow for standing seam metal roofs. The only roofing material that's allowed both in the commercial zones and in residential zones is the concrete slate or the S-tiles, and that is what staff is recommending in this instance. All the C1 zones have not introduced any metal roofing at this point. The compatibility with surrounding uses, the project is about 70 feet from residential area, which is a concern with staff because the 21-hour use would create noise that's not typical for the area. And as mentioned, the building and materials are inconsistent with the architecture in the area. I just remind the Planning Commission and those in the audience that the property at 2220 North Moore Park Road across the street from the subject site used to be a drive-through dairy. It was called Gia Capuzzi's Dairy. It had a history of students congregating on the site and creating issues with trash and nuisance to customers and to the neighborhoods adjacent to it. So in 1985, the City Council considered a zone change and to go from a commercial office to C2 for this location, and in doing so, limited uses that could be allowed on the site to prevent congregation on the property. And this allowed only low-intensity uses through that deed restriction. In 1987, the development permit for the shopping center was approved, and it adopted these deed restrictions. And In 1999, additional low-intensity uses were permitted. Since this application was filed, the applicant has conducted additional community outreach. They scheduled a meeting on June 28, 2019. They mailed notices to all residents within 500 feet of the project site, and this meeting was intended to be conducted at the community center at Thousand Oaks High School. However, the flyer provided an incorrect meeting address. On Tuesday, July 2nd this year, the applicant conducted a makeup meeting, and the applicant stated new notices were provided to residents within 500 feet of the project. It was conducted at the community center, and the applicant stated that 7 people attended that meeting. Through this application, this slide says 12 was received. We did receive one additional email, which was provided to I believe was provided to the commission before the meeting started. So it's 13 received, 9 against the project and 4 in favor. One of those letters in favor were signed by 3 individuals, one being a student. This project was reviewed in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. It's been found to be exempt as a Class 32 categorical exemption, which is for infill developments. And there are 5 criteria for using this exemption, and the project meets all 5 criteria. So in approving a special use permit, the Planning Commission must make all of the following findings. Listed here that the project is consistent with the Thousand Oaks General Plan, which it is. The project has been evaluated in conformance with the provisions of CEQA, which we found is exempt. However, the staff has determined the project does not comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and policies. The project will be detrimental to public health, general safety, and general welfare, and the project at the proposed location is not compatible with land uses in the vicinity. Staff does not believe that the setback waiver is appropriate on Kaya Jasmine, that the roofing material is inconsistent with the intent of the C1 zoning standards. The 21-hour operation will create noise that's not typical for the surrounding residential properties. The operation is too close to residential. Staff has concerns with this proximity to the high school and congregation of students on site. Therefore, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission deny the special use permit. However, if the Planning Commission elects to approve the request, the Planning Commission will have to make findings in doing so, and they will need to adopt or modify the conditions recommended by staff in attachment 4B of your report. The applicant has had an opportunity to read this suggested resolution, and the applicant does not agree with 3 conditions explicitly: the number 18, the hours of operation; number 30, the roofing materials; and number 108, which is the right in, right out only driveway on Avenida de las Flores. This concludes staff's presentation, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And good evening, Mr. Kearns, and thank you for your report. I'd like to start by clarifying some terminology, just so we're all working from the same set of facts during this hearing. In our previous hearing, in newspaper reports, in letters we've received from the applicant, they've all contained the term by right. And generally in planning, there's a term of art is use by right. And number one, let's just start with the term. Am I correct in understanding that it means property owner has the right to do whatever they like with their property as long as it meets all applicable zoning laws? Is that the generally understood definition of the term?
That's generally the gist of it. Yeah, the by right uses allow all uses prescribed in the municipal code under an approved development permit. So you have to have an entitlement on the land before you can have those by right uses.
Okay. The situation that's before us tonight, you've just identified a number of cases where the application in its current configuration is at variance with applicable zoning laws and guidelines. So is it also true then that it is not the case that the applicant would just go get a counter approval or administrative approval because of these outstanding issues that still need to be resolved? that it's not a by right case.
Yeah, in any case, there'll be a development permit required for construction, either development permit or special use permit, depending on the nature of the request. Any building construction on the site is going to require consideration by this body because of the setback waiver. It's practically infeasible to develop anything on the site because of it's bound by 3 streets. It's essentially on a peninsula, so you're going to take a setback waiver from one of the streets.
Right, and that's even without the gas station component. I mean, I think the applicant made, and I'll follow up with the applicant as well, but the applicant had previously stated during our April 1st hearing that, if the gas station component wasn't there, then it would be a by right use. And for the reason you just said, because of the setback issue, this would still be a matter that would come before this commission, correct?
It would come before the commission. I believe the use itself with an approved development permit is by right, the use. The development itself needs to be reviewed by the Planning Commission for conformance with the applicable laws.
Right, because of the setback issue.
That's correct.
And then in addition, there are other places where the application, again, is currently configured, is at variance with guidelines and zoning rules. So here we are.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. The other point of clarification I wanted to ask, I believe that this is regarding hours of operation for the strip mall that's across the street. You've given hours in this report that are quite a bit shorter than what's requested tonight. I just want to be clear on the one store, the Domino's Pizza store there that has the hours of operation are longer than the other stores there, later at night. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the shopping center across the way is 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. The Domino's had extended hours, which allowed them to operate from 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday until 2 a.m.
So I did a one-person survey of Domino's and asked how late they would deliver, and they said 1 a.m. So is it the case then that although they may have permit approval to operate till 2, that they do on Fridays and Saturdays they close up shop at 1 a.m.? Is that also correct?
That's what we were informed as well, that they do shut down a little bit earlier than the hours that are allowed. What the entitlement permits is hours of operation, and then the operator chooses to work within those hours, either all the way to the center.
But our understanding, it sounds like, is the same, that the very latest hour of operation in that strip mall is 1 a.m. for restricted use, which is takeout or delivery only of pizza, and then all the other shops in that strip mall close quite a bit earlier, even on Friday and Saturday nights. Is that also?
That's true.
All right, great, thank you. Going to just a few points in the staff report. You had a helpful table comparing what's changed between our April 1st hearing and where we are tonight. This is table 1 in your report, and I just want to quibble with the tobacco line. It's true that staff's report on April 1st said there would be no tobacco sales, but it's also true that the applicant would not commit to no tobacco sales at the April 1st hearing. So this is more of a comment than a question, but I'm not really sure that's a change, because the applicant was not representing that there would be no tobacco sales previously, and again tonight is making the same representation, that the applicant would like to sell cigarettes. So I'm not sure that's a change.
Yeah, not a change from the meeting, a change from the staff report itself. The staff report did indicate that there would be no tobacco sales. We received a letter prior to the April 1st meeting from the applicant's counsel that stated they did want sale of tobacco products. So staff is not recommending prohibiting tobacco in this case if Planning Commission decides to approve the project.
Fair enough. Thank you for clarifying that. Traffic question for Ms. Naum. I understand the reasons you've given for prohibiting left turns onto Flores from the service station. If we do go ahead and approve that prohibition, does the city anticipate an increase in traffic from cars that turn right onto Flores and then do U-turns in the residential neighborhood to get back out onto Moore Park?
So to answer over how many cars make a U-turn right now, yes, there would be an anticipated increase because right now there's probably very, very few. Making that U-turn has, with the left out, there's 6 conflict points, as well as you have to find a place to make your left into. To make a U-turn, you only have the one conflict point is the vehicle coming towards you. Realistically, you could be looking left on Cali Jasmine to make sure that they aren't coming up, but they have a stop control, so they can't turn out. So there's substantially less conflict points, and you can only make a U-turn when it's safe to make a U-turn. So the answer is yes, there will be U-turns, there'll be more than right now, but it's not, we see that it's a better alternative than the left out.
So you just used the magic word safe. Is it the city's judgment that it is safer to have that right turn only configuration?
Well, in my my presentation, what becomes, with the word safer, that by making it right out, there's less severe accidents. Making it left out, you have broadside accidents, you're T-boned, where if you make the right out, you get rear end accidents, and those are documented as not as severe as the left out accidents.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That answers my question. Mr. Kearns, coming back to tobacco sales, on page 8 of staff report, this may just be a wording thing, but on the paragraph about limitation of items sold, am I reading this right, that it says that the items sold shall not include tobacco? Because it then goes on to say that vaping products are out, but it explicitly does not limit other forms of tobacco, such as cigarettes.
Yeah, believe that's just a typo for carryover from last staff report.
Okay. And in any case, it's not a condition.
No, it's not a condition.
Right. All right. Thank you. And then my final question has to do with the architectural guidelines. This is on page 9 of the report, where you state that part of the planning and review process is that architectural design can be considered as part of the process. And you mentioned the canopies this evening, so it's broader than just the material of the roof, correct? It's what we're looking at and being asked to consider here is the totality of the design and whether it's compatible with its surroundings and compatible with, well, whether it is compatible with the neighborhood. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Excuse me. The service station guidelines acknowledge that service stations are generally going to be incompatible in some component with the residential areas around it. But it does refer back to the architectural design guidelines and where practical and feasible, incorporate design components that are consistent with the area. In this case, pitched roofs are generally typical of the residential area and the commercial shopping centers on both sides. So staff is just recommending that it matches that feature.
Okay. And then I apologize, I did have one more thing. One of the issues identified by staff, this is page 11 of your report, the third concern raised by staff is proximity to residential uses. And the second paragraph goes into a number of downsides from a service station, adverse uses. My question here is, are there other uses for commercial? Are there other commercial uses for this space? A medical building or something? Is there some other use for this building where the city would not have proximity concerns? Because I realize we are close to a residential neighborhood here.
Yeah, generally office uses are more passive, just by nature of the operation. And a medical office building was approved just immediately adjacent to the south, and there was no concern with that.
Okay, so the proximity was not an issue there.
Not in that case, no. And in that case, they did. In review of the project, they pushed the building back away from Cali Jasmine so that the setback reductions on the Moore Park Road.
Okay. There was a setback waiver in that case?
In that case, there was, yes.
There pretty much would have to be a setback waiver to put any structure here, correct?
On this property, there would be, yes.
Right, all right. That's all my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few questions. Commissioner Newman actually went through most of the issues that I was focusing on. Two things. Initially, the applicant in the documentation and Commissioner Newman referenced a alternative potential concept for this property. I want to make sure the staff has not reviewed any other designs or plans aside from the one that's here tonight in terms, you haven't looked at the alternative ideas, right?
No, that's not before the commission here tonight either. Staff has not reviewed that to make any comment or design alternative for that iteration.
Okay. I assume so, but I just want to make sure that if you've looked at things, I want to obviously know whether or not that's been considered as part of the process. Second of all, the staff recommended, to the extent we go forward with this, to allow operations of 9 o'clock for the convenience store and then 11 o'clock for the gas station. I just want to wonder, is that just so we create a 9 o'clock deadline because that's what the other mall is doing, or why 9 o'clock specifically?
9 o'clock was to be consistent with the two other shopping centers in the area. That was a closing hour for the retail component, but the fuel pumps themselves, we're recommending hours of operation consistent with the service station guidelines, which is 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
In looking at the plan, and again, without getting into plans too much, is that feasible for the applicant to do, to not allow sale of candy bar past 9 o'clock, but actually allow gas until 11 o'clock? It seems a little difficult feasibility-wise for them to do that.
Yeah, it would likely require an attendant window to be installed in the service station or the convenience store and have the convenience store locked up after 9 o'clock, but that would be an operational decision.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Kearns. I've got a couple of questions. One, following up on Mr. Newman's question about proximity to residential homes. Is there anything in our municipal code regarding gas stations and distance? As we heard in the previous application, we do have a provision about alcohol and distance to residential. I was just curious if we have anything for that.
There's nothing in the code or in the service station guidelines requiring a distance from residential. It just gives more restrictive operating hours if it's within 200 feet of a residential area.
Okay, and our gas station rules were updated last in 1972, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so it may not have been a big priority. I had a couple of questions about the history of the town. Jacopuzzi's Dairy, what year did that close? I want to say it was the mid-'80s, but are you correct?
Yeah, I believe it's 1985.
Yeah, okay. And then the other question I had is, do you know what year the original gas station on that property opened? I know it closed in 94.
Their permit was issued in 1969 for construction. They began construction in 70.
1969. Okay, and then my other question would be the subdivision off of Jasmine itself. Do you know when those homes were built?
Those are in the late 50s. Late 50s and some in the early 60s.
That came a little bit later. I was just asking. Okay, thank you very much.
Any more questions from the commissioners? Okay, thank you. Now we have the opportunity for the representative of the applicant to speak. You will have 15 minutes. Can you please come to the podium and state your name and city of residence for the record?
Oh, I just had 4 for the commission. Sorry, next time. They're just copies of those so they can see them up close. I figured it'd be more convenient for them.
Good evening, Honorable Planning Commission. We're thankful to be in front of you, the members of Thousand Oaks Planning Commission. Before I start my prepared remarks, I just want to qualify kind of something I noticed as Steve was giving his analysis, which is we today are applying for an SUP for a gas station. So the domain and the context of this conversation and this planning commission is the appropriateness of gas sales at that location. And it dawned on me that every single comment and even public comment I've ever heard has addressed either the convenience store, what's sold in the convenience store, the hours of operation, and absolutely nothing about actually the appropriateness of gas sales at this location. I present gas stations in other cities, and we hear gas-specific questions and issues and considerations, such as, will there be pedestrians crossing the gas station? Is there a likelihood that they could become injured or hit? Are there adverse smells from a gas station? Is that then too close to, other sensitive uses? But literally nothing in this entire process has actually involved the analysis of what we're trying to do, which is whether an SUP for gas sales is or is not appropriate for this location. So I just want, the Planning Commission to understand the domain and the scope of this hearing. I mean, that at its core is it. And I know this SUP and this discretionary permit that we're applying for does give you liberties. It gives you ways that you can impose other things. But to me, and perhaps I'm a frustrated applicant, but it seems like we're using the gas station as a way to extract a bunch of other stuff that otherwise wouldn't be considered. And I know we had a conversation, a long one, about tobacco. I know I sent you guys articles about, my hometown of Beverly Hills, prohibition citywide of tobacco. For the record, I'm supportive of their action. I think they were trailblazing. I think we ought to all be doing that. But as it pertains to last planning commission, I think it's not a planning commission item. It's a city hall, city council agenda item. I don't think cigarettes should be legal for anybody to sell, frankly. But if you're going to say they are allowed to be sold, as part of our application, we ought to be able to sell them as well. So I think there's kind of an important domain and context, and parameter that I think we all should understand and honor to a certain extent. And I think also, as it pertains to what Steve was commenting on with the hours of operations across the street at that strip center applied for a variance. It was a different use, and they wanted to become a commercial use. As part of that application, they applied for a variance. As part of that variance, government body said, okay, if you want this, we're going to impose these hours of operation till 9 o'clock at night. Our properties across the street, we don't need a variance. We're not going from one zone to another zone. So it's a quagmire and completely, illogical then to use a variance time frame that was imposed by on that specific lot as some justification to control our hours. So I just think, in the context of what we're about to talk about, this gentleman owns a piece of commercial property. Commercial property has value. I understand the residences and, they are here in full effect and practicing their, democratic right to speak about it. But, he has rights too. That commercial property is valuable as well. And that was a gas station. And it was remediated for 10 years. And at the core of this conversation, we're just trying to re-erect it. And the only reason we're trying to re-erect it was because 3 other developments were met with the same vitriol by the residences, which was a 2-story office complex, which Steve said he would prefer to see, except for the fact that he didn't go to the public community meeting we hosted that had 72 public speakers voicing their vitriol for that proposal, because it would cast shadows over the neighborhood, and it would cause already a glut of street parking that our neighbor to the south employees, patients, and everybody else were parking at. So we tried that already. We also tried a Starbucks development. The principal Lichtel didn't like that because kids would congregate there. They'd be on their computer, on their Wi-Fis, and they'd be congregating there, so that wasn't acceptable. So the last resort was the one we're pursuing today. I mean, we're out of answers beyond a gas station which was there peacefully for 40 plus years because nothing else has seemed to work. So in that context, I'll actually go to my prepared comments, but it just seems like we're public enemy number one for trying to develop a commercial property with a gas station on it when it was a gas station for 40 plus years peacefully. Nearly 2 years ago, on October 11, 2018, we hosted a group of 17 community members at Stantec's offices. At this meeting, we heard opinions about alternative uses, including suggestions of a community park, urgent care center, or a general office project. I explained then that a 24-hour urgent care chain was in fact interested in the site, but neighbors were justifiably opposed to sirens blaring both in the night and the evening 24 hours. Similarly, our first proposal of the community, which was a 2-story medical office development, was met with fervor from 72 folks at a community meeting, angrily opposed to resulting shadows over their homes and the inevitable employee parking that would overwhelm the residential streets. We hosted 3 additional community meetings for our current project with 6, 3, and 7 attendees on December 21st, June 28th, and July 2nd, respectively. We have taken to the streets with 3-person teams equipped with our renderings and project information to gain the input of those not attending our structured meeting, which have been few. The consensus is that the high school and residents alike would be thrilled to have a convenience store to purchase grocery items at this location. Thousand Oaks High School students, faculty, coaches, and leadership, all of which I've met with, have been the most enthusiastic about our project. Former students fondly remember crossing the street to the mobile gas station, while envious current students admonish the mile trek they have to take currently down Moore Park to get a sandwich, a refreshment, or a snack. Similarly, local residents complain that they have to drive to Ralph's on Jan's, which is several miles away, even if they only want a cup of coffee, gallon of milk, or medicine. Unfortunately, this C1 lot with considerable commercial by right uses is one street from a residential community. The result is that the vast majority of the neighborhood, and only the direct adjacent neighborhood, we're not talking about 10 houses away, 20 houses away, we're talking about the ones that literally face this lot, are the only folks that seem to be opposed to it, and they're opposed to everything. I would be remiss not to mention that this minority, according to the property title reports that I can forward to you, all, 100% of them, purchased their homes when there was a fully operational mobile gas station, plus a loud, smelly, and contaminating triple bay lube and tire repair shop to boot. Nevertheless, this lot has been empty for 10 years, undergoing remediation, fenced for safety, and full of pretty grass to look at, which has unrealistically reset their expectations and emboldened them to protect this status quo. Our development team has exhaustingly sought to accommodate these immediate neighbors. Their fears primarily and fairly revolve around safety and minimizing nuisance. We've addressed these in many ways. One, we added the gas station use, which is the only reason we're here, by the way, and pursuing the SUP. We added the gas station use specifically, not because 7-Eleven wanted it, because it's a declining secular business with razor tough margins, but because Principal Lichtel was concerned with the hangout situation. He was concerned if we just put a 7-Eleven convenience store and a bunch of parking, kids would congregate, it would become a drop-off, drop-on spot, and be a disaster. So my audible to Principal Lichtel was, let's add a gas station. No kids are going to want to hang out at a gas station. So ironically, the only reason we're in front of you today is to put a gas station, which we had no intention of originally putting. Number two, we allocated $300,000 to our security infrastructure build-out. This industry-leading package includes nearly 30 cameras, which will be fed real-time into both 7-Eleven Regional Command Center and Thousand Oaks Police Department via closed-circuit private network. Together with bright downlighting, focused music speaker technology, prickly landscaping, and site layout measures, loitering and homeless risk will be minimized more than any other retail land use. 3, we agreed not to sell beer, wine, or any liquor while 7-Eleven is the tenant on the property. That addressed additional neighborhood concerns that there could be a drunk loitering on site that spills off into their environments. 4, we agreed not to sell vape at the insistence of Principal Lichtel and Dr. Bergman of Thousand Oaks High School, because also the neighbors feared kids illegally buying them and hanging out on site, walking through the neighborhood, vaping. Totally understandable. We made the change. 5, we agreed not to open 24 hours. And 7-Eleven is a 24-hour brand. That's their identity. To get them from 24 hours down to 21, well, it sounds like, Steve alluded to, might not be sufficient, was a coup of grandiose proportions and needed to escalate to the CEO of North America. So we have really tried our darndest to get this right. On this last concession, too, I also want to warn you as it pertains to the hours of operations. We have built and operate a lot of these stores, and what you will see in the chain is the stores that close are a bigger problem for loitering, homeless, and other crime because they're closed. Unfortunately, those wanting to do harm or perpetrate crimes know that a 7-Eleven will close, and that becomes a meetup spot, a deal point, and it becomes troublesome. So I say tread lightly. I mean, I had advocated for 24 hours for safety because I meant it, but 21 hours leaves still 3 hours for, problems to arise. And, like the 7-Eleven adage goes, the greatest deterrent and security system is an open store with lights, with staff, with people roaming around. So, yeah, I mean, if the community is serious about actual security and safety, it doesn't make sense to close. If they're worried about bright lights and noise and other things, maybe so. But security, it's better off being open 24 hours. Numerous neighbors have warned us that the street racers take over Avenida de las Arboles during our proposed closed hours, which would make things worse. Our concern is that our parking lot becomes a meeting place at the starting gate for those races. Obviously, if 7-Eleven's open, this doesn't become the case. Better yet, if 7-Eleven remained open, they could call in the races to Thousand Oaks PD, and actually Thousand Oaks PD will see on the cameras that they're happening anyway. While we think our project benefits and compromise warrant approval themselves, we do want to share the pragmatic approach to the by right concept. I don't want to have a legal debate with the Planning Commission, but I've read the code very specifically, and if we just apply for a 2,200 square foot box, retail box, that is a by right box. What we do with it at that point almost is our choice. And the code doesn't have any limitations on hours of operation. Planning Commission absolutely will have to hear it because we would need a waiver from our setback, just like everybody else on that block, because the waiver distance is literally longer and wider than our lot dimension. But other than that, I mean, we could just assume go by right, ask you for a waiver, build a 2,000 square foot box, and stick 7-Eleven in there. But that's not what we're doing. It's not what we want to do. We're here fighting for a beautiful project. This is a gorgeous gas station. I'd want to live next to that gas station. I would.
I'm sorry. We're not going to have I'm sorry, we're not going to have any comments. No comments whatsoever.
In any case, I think the pictures, whether that is restricted some way and the staff cleverly figures out a way to handicap the by right version of it, all I can say is it will look very close to that ugly stucco box because it has $2 million less of construction budget money versus this, which is a beautiful facade.
Please wrap it up. Please wrap it up.
Okay. Well, in either case, I'm thrilled we're here. I'm thrilled you had us back again. I'm super happy for the forum, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Do we have, hold on just a moment. We may have some questions. Commissioner?
Good evening, Mr. McDowell.
Good evening.
On May 9th, you sent the commission, all commissioners, a letter, and it says in part, there's some material about the finances or the financial aspect of this application. There's a statement I want to understand better regarding what percentage of sales are from alcohol and from tobacco for the 7-Eleven component of the project. I'm not asking about how much gas you pump a year. I'm asking here about alcohol and tobacco. Quoting your statement back to you, it says that proactively restricting beer and wine sales voluntarily forgoes 21 to 23% of projected sales. And then you go on to say, should we, and I'm quoting now, should we be forced to lose tobacco sales, 7-Eleven would not be able to justify the loss of 50% of projected annual revenue. Yes or no? Does that mean that tobacco sales at this location represent between 27 and 29% of projected revenue? Yes or no?
I meant, excuse me, Commissioner, I meant that to be confidential, and I was just sending that to you. And honestly, that's and I sent it saying it would be confidential. So I can't talk about that, and that's trade secrets, and we don't disclose sales. I was sending that to you directly so you understood the magnitude.
I want you to understand, I was at two things. Number one, I was asking a yes or no question. But number two, more importantly, as a matter of process, it's very important you understand this. This is a public hearing. Anything that you send to this commission through channels, which is how you should do it, is a matter of public record.
Okay, so I would appreciate if that would say confidential because I would be breaking rules with my client.
This is a public hearing.
Okay, but Commissioner, I think the answer is when people fuel up, the two biggest segments and the two biggest products they buy are tobacco and alcohol. That's just a function of gas sales, right? It's a convenience item. They pull up, and a lot of times they buy cigarettes and they buy gasoline. So yes, is it a nice chunk?
You've put it out there what the figures are. I didn't put that out there.
Okay, so I apologize for putting them out there.
I'm asking the question.
I apologize for putting them out there.
Does the math mean that tobacco is 27 to 29%?
Commissioner, if I put it out there, I apologize, but I'm not going to answer it now following up.
All right, I understand. You want to answer it. Let's move on. You also stated in your testimony just now that one advantage of 24-hour operation would be safety, and that if there were an incident, staff, if they were on site, would be able to communicate more quickly with police, which is certainly the case, and that cameras that are wired in, I guess, somehow to the police department would pick up on activity. Isn't it the case, Mr. Megdal, that the cameras could be in operation 24 hours regardless of whether there's staff on site?
Yeah, I'm sure they will be on, but cameras that respond, and you have responding time of several, I know.
I'm not asking about staff, I'm just asking about the cameras. Would the cameras be in operation
most certainly will
24
be
hours?
on. Most certainly be on.
All right. That's all I have. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any, Commissioner? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Megdal, for being here and being part of this process. And I do want to thank you for looking to invest in Thousand Oaks, notwithstanding I know a lot of stress that you're going through.
Thank you.
With that said, obviously there's a lot of questions and things, one of which I want to kind of understand just the 35,000 square foot or 35,000 square foot issue.
Sure.
Who owns the property?
This gentleman here.
Who is this
Under
gentleman?
Fact-Based Trust, and then my aunt. It's been in the family for many years. We owned it when it was a gas station as well.
Okay. And Mr. Megdal, are you going to be the tenant?
So I would be purchasing the property and building it for 7-Eleven.
And who is going to be running the 7-Eleven operation?
The operation would be a designated and hand-selected, interviewed for franchisee.
So the franchisee that's actually running the 7-Eleven operation is not with us here today?
No, because it will be a future franchisee. There's strict guidelines, there's interviews, there's performance metrics. They make sure they are studying each potential franchisee very carefully. It actually should be noted that 7-Eleven franchisees are so good that we pulled the records, and we can, going back as many years as we could, if all 5,000 Oaks stores, there's not been one violation that we can find for any or violation of carding. Not one. And Officer Alvarez also ran a search, and he couldn't find one either.
Okay, and that brings me to another thing. You make a lot of statements in reference to information, like
Sure.
what you just said. And I'll start specifically with 7-Eleven operations. Is there any documentation you submitted to the city as to how 7-Eleven requires their franchisees to operate?
I mean, I'm sure 7-Eleven has very strict, obviously.
Again, the question was, you're asking us to evaluate a 7-Eleven franchisee who's not even here. Did you give any of the rules to the city so they can actually understand what rules that franchisee has to operate under?
Right. So, Commissioner, they go through a very strict, selection process. There is a 7-Eleven university of sorts where it trains all the franchisees. There's a heavy investment in employee education. These stores are run very tight. And like I said, the proof is there hasn't been one under 21 violation in all of Thousand Oaks for as long as the PD has records and as long as 7-Eleven does.
So in my off time, I'm a lawyer, and which I believe you are as well, right? So, right?
Yeah, of what?
You used to be a lawyer. I think you're an actor.
Yes.
So there is an actual case pending against 7-Eleven by franchisees for being misdesignated as independent contractors versus franchisee. Are you aware of that?
I wasn't.
So again, there's a huge actual class action lawsuit by franchisees against 7-Eleven because of the fact of what their business training and acumen and stuff like that. So that's why I'm trying to understand if you gave any of the 7-Eleven info, because nobody is from 7-Eleven here today, correct?
There is. Paul Ferricho, who's one of the heads of the region. So he's here to answer any and all questions you have.
Okay, so that would be somebody important to be part of your presentation at some point, because again, if there's a lot of those rules and regulations we're kind of looking at.
Perfect. Paul, would you mind coming up?
No, I can finish just asking. Again, I know there's a lot of people here who want to speak. I just want to get some just general concepts. You also mentioned a new law that was passed that actually makes smoking raise the age from 18 to 21. Were you aware of the fact that they also took away all criminal penalties against the minors to the extent they have illegal tobacco products?
I was not aware.
And because that necessarily puts more of the burden on the vendor selling the cigarettes, necessarily makes
Commissioner, I wish this whole world were rid of cigarettes. I'm just saying, if every gas station is allowed to sell them in your community, ours should be too.
But you mentioned that, by the way, that the only reason we're here is the gas station, which, again, as you can understand, there's criteria for the gas station. At any point, would you be willing to get rid of the convenience store and just run a gas station?
No.
Okay, I mean, that's why we're here, is that you also want to
But Commissioner, we could build, that C1 is allowed to operate a market, right? The only thing that we aren't allowed to without your approval is the gas component. That's the whole point. That's why I made a designation and a distinction between by right and what we're applying for. We could legally put a convenience store that sells cigarettes and sells vapes on that property. What we can't do...
Is that what this is a picture of, the other picture that says not approved, or what is that?
Yeah, that says, that is our best guess of what it will look like if we don't get the gas station, right? The gas station gives us an additional $2 million of construction money. It affords it to look as beautiful and as glamorous as it does for a gas station. And that is your, unfortunately, brass tacks, normal looking 7-Eleven, that is half the budget because it doesn't have gas sales.
Chair, if I may, excuse me, commissioners, if I may, just because it seems like we're getting a little bit off topic or it could be possible we get a little off topic with this by right kind of discussion. And I understand Mr. Newman brought it up initially. He was, I think, very careful how he asked his questions, but I just want to make sure for the record that it's very clear that tonight what we have before you is the application that staff received. We've only had 2. We haven't had any of these prior conversations, applications about a 2-story office or some other type of use. The first applications the city received, the official application, was the one that you heard a few months ago. It was for the gas station, service station, plus the convenience store. Yes, the gas station or the service station requires a SUP. Yes, this property requires a number of waivers due to the project, but we were reviewing and have been reviewing the project that was submitted to us. Very important. The second application we received is the application tonight, and as you've obviously seen and noted, there's minor changes. One of the changes has to do with the hours of operation, but for the most part, it's been the same. We had a question last time about the size of the lot. Mr. Kearns expressly cleared that up. As far as smoking, let me just be very clear about the smoking issue. My recommendation, if you were to approve this project, would not to in any way put an additional condition to ban the sale of smoking at this time. As we discussed it briefly, we'd have to make a very specific finding to do that. The city currently does not have an ordinance to ban the sale of tobacco in the city like Beverly Hills does. So again, we've been talking about those 2 things, smoking a lot and this by right issue. For the record, we have the project in front of us, which includes a gas station and a 7-Eleven. That's what we have in front of us tonight. That's what you are considering tonight. I certainly appreciate the comments about by right and his comments. He can make the comments if he wants to about the by right, but tonight we have this specific thing. We haven't received any other application. We have nothing to review. We have nothing to analyze. We don't have any 7-Eleven information for the franchisee. We do not have that information. So this is what we have. So again, I'm not saying to cut you off. You can ask those questions. I just want to make sure we clear for the record that there's no by right project in front of us tonight. We have this specific project, which included the gas station and the convenience store.
And just to kind of finalize that, you've not submitted any of these other ideas or plans to the city, correct?
No, Mr. Kern said we have to only file 1 application at a time.
Okay. Last kind of question was the public outreach. What happened on the address?
So it was completely my mistake. I take 100% responsibility for it. The previous meeting was at Santec's offices, and I printed out the notices, actually put them in the mail as well as hand delivered them, and I inadvertently kept the same address as Stantec instead of updating it to the more convenient community park at Moore Park Road. Fortunately, only 3 people showed up to that meeting. So 3 folks came to the meeting that was incorrectly at that location. And so I literally got on it and noticed it, and thankfully was able to get 7 to a replacement one.
But that was on July 2nd, 2 days before a holiday, right?
Yeah, but July 28th, Commissioner Larson had 3 people, and that was a week and a half before July 4th.
True. At the wrong address, but I understand your point. I will wait and ask my other questions after the public gets a chance. Thank you.
Commissioner?
I'll try to keep this short and sweet. Most of the 15 minutes you just spent, you're talking about a number of issues, so I just want to follow up on them. You mentioned an office building and talking about building that. Was that ever presented to the Planning Commission?
So in the first packet for our first Planning Commission, I submitted a big binder that included all the plans.
I remember I didn't get one of those.
Yeah, so it was in there.
So that was submitted to the Planning Commission, that binder?
No, we had a neighborhood council meeting, and there were 72 folks that came, and we made the judgment that if 72 people came to oppose it versus only 17 for 7-Eleven, we were not going to spend money on it.
So you decided that was less popular. And then the Starbucks, you decided because a principal told you not to?
Yeah, so so the first gentleman I always was told to speak to was Hayter. Hayter Alawi.
I know.
And Hayter said, unless I could get the high school endorsement, there was no way staff was going to endorse it, no way a project could happen. And so I took a Starbucks project to Principal Lichtel. Principal Lichtel said, no way, and that was the end of that.
because it's funny because one of your supporters that sent us an email was a high school student, and I was thinking high school students love Starbucks, so it's weird that you would go with the principal's opinion over the students who you're hoping to be your customers.
Exactly. No, therein lies, unfortunately, the dichotomy. All the students are anxious to have Starbucks as well as 7-Eleven. It's just the immediate neighbors who are outraged.
Okay, and then I have two questions for you. How many 7-Elevens are in Beverly Hills, your neighborhood?
I actually don't know.
I do, 0. But I worked down there for a long time.
Did you?
I wish there was a 7-Eleven.
Is the one La Cienega on Holloway? That's not technical. That's West Hollywood.
That's not. The other thing is that you did send us some information. Now we may not be discussing it, but you were talking about the amount of tax revenue this would generate for the city.
Substantial. Yes.
Are you at liberty to discuss that?
Sure.
Okay, so you said $300,000. My question is how much of that would be generated above and beyond, and how much of that is just based upon the amount that's spent in the town? Are you saying this is additional revenue above and beyond what we're already generating at local stores, or is this money you'd be taking from your competition because your store is going to be better?
That's actually a good question. I appreciate you phrasing it that way. Of course, we will take some competition from, I think, the older generation of gas stations. I must tell you, the inventory of gas stations, because they've all been built 30 or 40 years ago, are really unpleasant. So we do see that as an opportunity to bring a new, gorgeous, modern gas station to this market, which hasn't seen one in 20, 30 years. So a portion of that revenue, we would anticipate, unfortunately being offset by reduction in your other gas stations. But still, we see, I would say about half of it, would still be new business.
So you do have a model that projects this?
I don't have a model. I'm just speaking from generalizations.
Just curious. All right, I'll save everything else I have for later. Thank you.
I do have one question.
Sure, Commissioner.
Given all the other things that have been controversial, I was wondering the thought process of why you went with a metal roof instead of just doing what the city was asking.
Commissioner, I appreciate you asking that question. I love my architect, Neil Scribner, and Neil Scribner is adamant that the code allows for that metal roof, and he also is adamant that will look beautiful and distinguished, and we're trying to deliver a gorgeous product. So I personally, as the developer, nor 7-Eleven, have any interest in that roof being metal, but I do have an interest in his artistic and aesthetic choice, and so I wanted to fight for it to the extent we could.
Is there a cost difference doing metal versus?
Sure, I actually think a metal roof would cost more.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Let's see. I guess we will go to public comments. But before we do that, I just want to make it clear that everybody who comes up has a right to say what they feel. And I don't want any applause. I don't want any jeering. I don't want any comments. The applicant has a right to say what he feels, and so does every speaker. So we're going to be very respectful here tonight. If you want to speak, you need to fill out a speaker card. If you want to speak about this project, we have quite a few speaker cards, and typically when there's more than 16, every speaker has 2 minutes, and we do have more than 16. I didn't even count, there's so many. So if somebody has said exactly what you wanted to say, perhaps you could just say ditto, and we can move on and not take too long. I will state the name of the speaker and the speaker to come so that the next speaker can get ready and we can move along in an efficient manner. So with that, our first, and these cards are in order of how they were received. So the first speaker is Paul Furcho, and please come up and state your name and city of residence. Oh, excuse me, you're the applicant?
Yeah, he's a 7-Eleven.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's not written on here. Are you part of the applicant? Or are you speaking as part of the applicant's team?
So, no, I just filled out a public speaker card because usually what I like to do is answer questions that were raised that maybe Taylor didn't know.
So, okay, I'm sorry. They're not letting me. We're going to go on to the next speaker.
Well, the answer is, if just for the record, if his team wanted him to speak or you had questions specifically for him, they would call him up just like you did with the other gentleman, or maybe from 7-Eleven. They could do that. But as part of the applicant team, that's the 15 minutes that they would have.
Okay.
So if he's part of that team, it's the 15 minutes.
Okay, and actually, the applicant's team has a 5-minute rebuttal, and you'd be able to come up during that time if that's what you wanted to do. No?
Just to clarify, as a matter of process, we want to hear everything everyone has to say, but the rules here that we've had in place for many years are quite clear. When an applicant comes up, their entire team has 15 minutes to make a presentation. They can divide that up any which way they like, but it's 15 minutes. Then there's a period of public speakers who are not applicants, but the public. Then does staff go next or rebuttal? Or
Staff.
Right. So then staff has a period to respond to all of the comments, applicant and public. And then there's a 5-minute period for the applicant to come back.
Yeah, no problem. I can answer the questions that Taylor didn't know the answers to in the rebuttal.
That'd be great. And that'll also give you an opportunity, if you like, to come back with comments about any of the other comments we're about to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so our first public speaker is Randall Wagner, and after that will be Robin Keswick. And please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Randall Wagner. Been a resident of Thousand Oaks for over 30 years. I live in the neighborhood just to the southeast of this proposed development. I'd like to start by correcting a statement I made in error at the meeting here 3 months ago about restrictions on tobacco sales close to a school. I was misinformed and looking at other cities' ordinance that had such an ordinance, but Thousand Oaks does not. Okay, my second point is I see that there's been a change about traffic entries and exits, forcing a right-hand turn onto Flores. Well, that was one of my concerns 3 months ago, is that people who want to travel in the southward direction after stopping here would tend to turn down Cali Jasmine and wind their way through the residential neighborhood where I live, finding their way back out on Columbia where there's a stoplight and they can conveniently head southward on Moore Park Road. So that was my objection, and I see that forcing a right-hand turn onto Flores to exit will only encourage that rather than do a left turn and then another left turn down Moore Park. As Mr. McDowell mentioned, a derelict, abandoned business is the worst thing possible. Personally, I don't see this as an economically viable venture. No alcohol sales, no vaping products, gasoline, although you can sell gasoline now. The move towards electric-powered vehicles is going to make the demand for gasoline diminish greatly in the near future. So I just don't see this as a viable project, but that's up to Mr. McDowell and his investors. So, thank you.
Thank you. Robin Keswick, and after that will be Nick Kidway.
Hi, my name's Robin Keswick, and I want to start by thanking staff for an outstanding summary of the project and traffic and the impact to our community. I've lived on Teasdale Street, which is about a block away, and my neighbors are here too. They didn't do the public speaking cards, but they're here. So it's not just the people right next door to the proposed 7-Eleven that are upset. In fact, there are 1,000 signatures of people, and I think it's a next door petition. But 1,000 people who don't want the increased traffic and gas trucks pumping tanks full of gas at midnight and milk delivery trucks at 6 a.m. Our community is a nice, calm, residential community with a great high school in the middle. So we have our kids and We all drive a little extra careful for them. I don't know if everyone pulling into a 7-Eleven is going to be extra careful because there's high schoolers walking and texting and getting cigarettes too, it sounds like. I want to say that there are 3 grocery stores within 1 mile of this proposed 7-Eleven. There's Ralph's, there's Vons, and there's Trader Joe's. So it's not like we can't get milk. I mean, it's available. And there are 2 gas stations within a half a mile and a 3rd one within a mile. So there's plenty of gas stations. They're not enhancing our community as much as the building looks very lovely. It's not improving our community. It's a detriment to our community. People who live on Kelly Jasmine, who already have a really hard time pulling out of their street and making the left onto Flores so they can get to Moore Park, it's already really hard twice a day because of the high school. It's going to be impossible getting through there when people pulling out of the service station, making the right as staff directs. That sounds good. Making a right, but then they can't get out of Kelly Jasmine because this traffic is just going right. And their street's going to be backed up. Am I out of time?
You're
I'm
out.
sorry. Okay. Well, I have more notes, but thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Nick Kidwai, and then Archer Wilson.
Nick Kidwai, resident of Newbury Park, director concerned citizens of Thousand Oaks. Honorable Planning Commissioners, the traffic issue is a bogus issue. Of course, if there's no project, there's no traffic. So you will get traffic. And this is not the number 1 corner on Moore Park Road. This is a slower street. There's no on-ramps for the 23. So there isn't as much traffic as would be on Los Arblos or on Giants Road or Wilbur. So I don't know if somebody will correct me if I am wrong, but I did certainly hear staff say that there are no setback, all setback requirements have been met. I think that's what was said initially. And then we come up with this issue that we don't have the setback requirement for Kai Jasmine. I also would like to say that the staff says it's Kelly, it's Calle, C-A-Y-L-L-E, it's Y, and it's a Spanish word. It should be spelled and pronounced the right way, Calle Jasmine. It's very disappointing that the Ventura County Star has given up on the city. There was nothing in the Sunday paper. There was nothing in the last 5 days. How do people know about the project? Just the Acorn? That's once a week. The applicant very calmly said that there was a coup to get 3 hours off from 7-Eleven. And that was one of the big demands in the last meeting from people and everyone. And I attended the October 11th meeting and talked to Mr. Scribner. And he said that they have spent too much money in it and they will not back down. Please support this and end the misery for the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Archer Wilson, and then Amy Wilson. Please state your name and city of residence for the record.
Hi, I'm Archer. I'm 5 years old. I go bike riding when I go walk the dogs. It'll be too dangerous when it's 7-Eleven because there will be a lot of cars. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Archer. Amy Wilson.
I'm Amy Wilson. I live in Thousand Oaks. First of all, all I really want to say is that there's been a whole lot of untruths in this entire thing for our poor community and kind of downright shadiness. First of all, we very much have complained about a gas station. We have a huge objection to a gas station. you know, I had never heard of there being a medical office proposed for there, and I live 2 houses down from the current medical office. I'd never heard of a meeting where 72 people had such vitriol against a medical office. So I was never invited to anything like that, and we peacefully coexist with the current medical office. We have no problems with that. I think that the setback that they have on Moore Park Road is how that should be laid out. The setback shouldn't be on the side of, you know, Majid's house. You know, that's not right against the residential neighborhood. Also, I don't know about you, but I don't go to a gas station because of its beauty. For me, it's more about price, so I don't know what that's going to bring. You know, just all in all, I already pick up a lot of trash from high school students. I pick up cigarette butts. I'm very much against selling tobacco in that area. And it is just really going to change the whole landscape of our really nice rural neighborhood where people ride horses. It just isn't a good fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Bill Wilson and Annie Wilson.
Hi, I'm a resident that lives a few houses down from the proposed site.
Please state your name.
Bill Wilson.
Thank you.
And yeah, I was just going to comment on, you know, that whole, they do the takeout at Domino's. They close at 11 o'clock, and they close, Domino's says, for safety reasons at 11 o'clock because they had a lot of break-ins in the pharmacy there. So that's takeout. So that's 11 p.m., right? And they'll do some deliveries after that that goes later. But on the weeknights, it's 11 o'clock. And on Friday and Saturday, it's 11:45 at night. So it is everything's shut down and very quiet in there for the community. On each side of that proposed site is residential homes with babies that live there that are just brand new baby born right there across from there. Right next door where they live, right in the driveway, is absolutely young children that live there. And then we have a baby next door on the third side of it that it's within 1 year old. And we have a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old. All surrounded by children that use the park and recs for whether it's football or whether it's for events or for kindergarten or for all of that. Park and rec is right there adjoined to Thousand Oaks. All that is our kids going over there. Archer came up, he was 5. He learned a bike ride this weekend. We were over at the Anthill. We're at the Anthill and we just go across there. He will have to go across the 7-Eleven. He'll have to go across that with all that traffic. So we butt up against Moore Park, and there is screeching with rear-ending all the time because there's nowhere to go when you stop on Moore Park Road, and people get rear-ended all the time, and fatalities with kids getting hit on bikes, and so I'm always out there seeing sirens all the time. So it's not just during the school hours, in the morning and school hours at night. It is absolute traffic during all times of the day where people are going over there and using the park and using the park and rec. So they applied last time. They got declined. The only thing they did is took a tape measure, it sounds like, and got another couple extra feet. And that's all that's changed from the last time he applied. So please deny him again, just like you did last time. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Then we have Annie Wilson, and after that, Sherry Kamal.
Hi, I'm Annie. I am a resident of Thousand Oaks. I am 10 years old. I don't think a 7-Eleven should be placed in my neighborhood because it can attract bad people, crimes, and a lot of traffic. When my family and I walk to the park, we have to pass where the 7-Eleven would be placed, and we don't want people asking us for money or trying to steal from us. I think that adding a 7-Eleven will give a better chance of crimes happening in my safe little neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sherry Kamal, and then Majid Kamal. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced it.
Hello, my name is Sherry Kamal, and I live in Thousand Oaks. Matter of fact, my house is directly across on the corner of Los Arboles and Calle Jasmine. So I have a few concerns, in my opinion, why I don't want a gas station, let alone a 7-Eleven in my neighborhood. The area is already high traffic. And as you have stated before, we are here to look at the codes and see if this meets the codes. This project meets the codes. So I wanted to point something out with the traffic picking up there, and there's always traffic right there, and people do come in and make U-turns. I have 2 driveways on Calle Jasmine, How am I going to get out of my home to go to work, to go to the store, to spend money in the community, to participate in community events? I did want to point out that the traffic study that was done when the Starbucks on Rancho and Thousand Oaks Boulevard was built is now causing traffic problems. And in my thinking, this would be a similar situation. I'm certain those businesses there behind Starbucks are losing money because people cannot get in and out of their businesses. We as neighbors and as a community won't be able to get out of our community. I don't see a difference. Secondly, I know I'm almost out of time, but the standards for gas stations, I believe, as you were stating, the last update was 1972. This is 2019. Maybe it needs to be looked at again. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Majid Kamal, and after that, Denise Edwards.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Majid Kamal. I live at 616 East Avenue, the Las Flores. As my wife kind of mentioned, we live at the house that is going to be most impacted by this proposed project. I have a question for the planners, and that is, when you were doing your traffic studies, did you consider all the...
Excuse me, can you direct your comments to us, please?
I have a question for the planners, and that is when they...
Let me explain what happens is we get everybody's comments. Some of us might ask questions of the public, and at the end of all the comments, the staff has been taking notes, and they respond to everything that of note that has come up, and they will respond to your questions and anything else that has been said.
I understand that, and I was just going to propose the question so they can have the time to think about it.
Propose it to us.
I was just doing that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So would you reset me to my time, please? Thank you. So the questions for the planners to think about is that when they were doing their traffic studies, did they consider the delivery vehicles, being the trucks for the proposed convenience store or the fuel? And I think that by itself is a very evident thing that this is just not a good idea. This project is not a good idea for this site. Several times, Taylor has mentioned by rights, and I just want to remind you that your mention of this by rights does not constitute giving you a waiver of the setbacks. You still have to deal with that. And I'm very much hoping that the commissioners would take that really under consideration, that do not give him the waiver. If you give him the waiver, you're taking away from quality of my life, my kids' life, and everybody else in that neighborhood. The subject of Domino's delivery hours has come up. Those folks' buildings faces Moore Park Road, not like the one that these folks are proposing. They are facing directly my house. They have a more impact on my quality of life than Domino's has at those late hours. And they're making it sound as if going from a 24-hour proposal to a 5 to 2 a.m. is a favor to us. It is not. It's the same. It's the same. And then another thing for the planners to also consider is that my background is in civil engineering and field surveying. I know for a fact that within a few years, that signal, that intersection, Calle Jasmine and Las Flores, will be a controlled, whether it's stop signs or signal intersection. Have they considered any of that? impact on this proposed project.
Thank you.
And one last thing, I'll be done. Taylor said for 40 years the gas station was peacefully there. No, it was not there peacefully. I lived through those years. There was nothing peaceful about those years. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Denise Edwards, and after that, Patricia Bond.
Thank you. My name is Denise Edwards, and I actually am living quite a distance from it. I'm just north of Olson Road off of Moore Park Road. So I'm not, I'm at a distance, but my concern is that I come down Moore Park Road around 8 o'clock, 5 days a week, and the traffic is unbelievable. It is just definitely not a safe place to put in a 7-Eleven and a gas station where cars are coming and going. It just doesn't. And the other thing everyone keeps saying about it was a gas station, everybody was happy with it. But I didn't live here then. I moved in '94. I came from the valley, and it was beautiful when I grew up there. And I watched all these things happening. It's all about money. They just let in all these little places because they're the city. They're going to get the taxes. They're going to get the money. But I know you're doing your job, and thank God for you, the planning committee. But I want to say that in '67, I think you said, or something like that, was a gas station. The population in Thousand Oaks was nothing like it is now. Even probably less than half it is now, because when I moved in, I was so excited that it was 100,000 population. So these are things like, and the medical group, I never knew that there was a consideration for a medical group, because I've always been wondering why they haven't continued with the one that's just down the ways a little bit from the corner, and make it a one-story, and a combination of all kinds of medical, dental, labs. Why are we not appealing to the medical group? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Patricia Bond, and after that, Steve Nicholson.
Hi, my name is Patricia Bond, and I'm actually one of the 3 homes that sits on the east of the property, directly behind it. And a lot of the points have been met. 3 hours less than 24 hours is really not a change. All the trucks that will be coming to deliver will be, there will be a noise. And my house, my bedroom faces where that would be. Now, the medical place does have lights 24 hours a day, but they do have them, they're kind of ambient lighting, so it's not super bright. And I'm really concerned for the safety of my children. I have a daughter that goes to Thousand Oaks High School, and she normally would walk to school, but I don't know that I would let her walk to school anymore. On another note, the meetings that Mr. Megdal had said that he's had about the medical and all that, I live within a really short range, and I never received any of those. I did receive the one for the June 28th, and then for the one that was changed for July 2nd, I happened to be on vacation, and I would have been there. During that time, right after that, I would like to share some photos. Mr. Megdal did come around and was harassing my neighbors. My neighbor directly across the street saw him. He came knocking on my door. Do I just pass this to you? And was peeking in my window, my kitchen window, and then was peeking in my front door. This is for everyone to see. And that's like harassment, and it's really creepy to have some person looking in my door. That's not really a good, someone who wants to run a business in the area and is so concerned about the community. That doesn't seem like a very community-oriented type of behavior for someone. If I would have been home, I would have called the police. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Steve Nicholson, and after that will be Timothy Corbett.
Steve Nicholson, 586 Kaya Jasmine. I live 4 houses down from the medical building. In regards to the Domino's, we also made a stop at Domino's, and we were told that they locked the door at 11 o'clock with deliveries going to 1 o'clock after that. They said that they've had a lot of problems with people showing up after 11 o'clock. They've had their front window broken. They've had other people trying to get in, drunk people, high people. Basically, what the employee told us, a quote was, "Nothing good happens after 11 o'clock." Really nothing has changed. 3 hours doesn't make a difference in this plan. The community has spoken. They do not want this project. The immediate residents are 100% against this project. The city planner does not recommend approval. The PTA does not. I believe selling tobacco at this location across the street from a high school is a horrible idea. We also deal with quite a bit of traffic already at that corner. I think that's going to be a problem. I believe there will be increased crime, vagrancy. All these issues that were discussed, they will still be happening. It's just not a good fit for this lot, this project. And in regards to the community outreach meetings, my wife and I were at the first 2. We also tried to be at the third one. We were 2 of the 3 that showed up who, to nobody being there. We were given less than 24 hours for the 4th notice, so we couldn't make that. I couldn't change my plans. The meetings that we did attend, it was really a lack of community outreach. There was misinformation. The only specific question I asked, they did not have an answer for. We heard what great food we were going to be able to buy at the 7-Eleven. I strongly urge the Planning Commission to say no to this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Timothy Corbett, and after that will be Chris Huddleston.
Good evening. My name is Timothy Corbett. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you for everybody being here. Everybody's pretty much hit the talking points I wanted to talk about. There is one big thing, though, is that the site has supposedly been cleaned and remediated since 2004. Are the tanks still in the ground? Will they have to be taken out? Has that site been cleaned? That's my question. Have the tanks been taken out?
Staff is making notes as we go along, and you'll get answers at the end of all the public comments.
I'm sorry, what?
Staff is taking notes as we go along, and you'll get answers to all the questions at the end of all the public comments.
All right, everybody's been spot on tonight about their concerns. Truly, it's just a bad idea to put a gas station or a convenience store at that intersection. Too many kids, too much traffic, too close to the residents, and it's just not a good idea. And I think the city knows that. I think the residents know that. I think it could be developed in other ways, and maybe the landowner should look at developing it in that way. That would be a more positive influence on the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chris Huddleston, and after that, excuse me, Susan Slow.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. Unfortunately, I'm not in the groupthink consensus. I actually don't live in Thousand Oaks right now. I have in the past. I did live next to a 7-Eleven for 6 years, and I do understand some of the concerns. I lived next to a 7-Eleven from 2010 to 2016, and the brand, I think, has a really interesting stigma to it. One that, people sort of know it from growing up. They have an idea of Slurpees and sugar and all this other stuff. And the one I live next to actually went through a rebrand in about 2014. And they brought in a beverage wall. They brought in fresh fruit. They did all of these things that was the opposite. And I hadn't set foot in that 7-Eleven. And I was just really curious about it. So the long story short is it was a single tenant 7-Eleven, not a shopping center. And it was beautiful. And I ended up buying food there. I never thought I would do that. It's just, at the end of the day, I think there's some common sense approach here that you guys can come to a middle ground. If there's houses next door that have a problem, I'm sure there's a wall that can be built. I'm sure there's mitigation measures. And at the end of the day, this is a conditional use permit. You can always bring them back in and say, you need to do these extra measures to make this 7-Eleven run properly. So there's got to be, after seeing this and hearing this, I've known Taylor for 30 plus years. He's a stand-up guy. He's done really great developments. And I don't understand all the laughter and everything else. I think, it's discriminating against a tenant that, quite frankly, would bring, yes, a lot of tax revenue. I think would bring security, would bring, life to that corner. And at the end of the day, it's not a destination. It's the cars driving past it. It's people that live in the community. It's going to be these kids getting the sugar-free Slurpee. I hate to tell them, I've got a 6-year-old who loves the Slurpees. And I just think that the stigma that 7-Eleven has, they're working to come out of it. I just Postmated items from 7-Eleven 2 weeks ago, and it's a different brand than what you're thinking. And I just sort of implore everyone, I know it's very easy to come in and yell at Taylor, yell at 7-Eleven or whoever else, and I know the position you're in, these are your constituents, you want to fulfill what they're asking, but I would take a step back and say, how can we make this site successful? What can we do to make these people happy? Because at the end of the day, it's a commercially zoned property, and this is a great use. I mean, it's not a Chick-fil-A.
All right, one more. I think we do have a question for you.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Huddleston, thank you
Please.
for coming to Thousand
Yeah,
Oaks to
100%.
testify this evening.
No problem.
2 questions, actually. One is, where are you living that's next to a 7-Eleven?
So on Curson and Sunset Boulevard.
In Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I spend most of my time out in Malibu, though. That's why I was able to come here tonight on short notice. Taylor mentioned that he had a hearing, and, I've partnered with him on projects before in the past.
Well, that's my second question.
I'm not a
is-
stakeholder in this at all. I have no financial
My
incentive.
question is,
Sure.
are you, you mentioned a 30-plus year association with,
Sure.
friendship with Mr.
Sure.
Mr. Megdal. What is your, or do you have a business association with Mr. Megdal?
I do, correct.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Can I clarify what it is?
Sure.
I've built a Starbucks drive-through, 3 of them with him. And at the end of the day, I do think that's a great business model, but that is a destination where cars come to the site and create traffic. A 7-Eleven is a pass-by site, and this is going to be used by the residents, and if it's not, it's going to go out of business.
Okay.
So, anyway,
that's fine. I just want to
absolutely.
understand that.
And I think it's a very fair question that I should have said on the record, but at the end of the day, I'm here as a friend. I'm not here as a project stakeholder. I'm here as someone who has watched him go through this, and I just,
Right.
I think there's some cooler heads that can prevail.
I appreciate your coming to speak
Absolutely.
in support
Thank
of
you
your
for having
friend.
me. I appreciate
Thank you.
your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Susan Sloat, and after that, John McLaughlin.
Hi, Susan Sloat, 45-year resident of Thousand Oaks, 748 Cali Clavel. I just have a couple of questions for the commission. Mr. Megdal had mentioned also something about if the 7-Eleven, once the 7-Eleven wasn't occupying the space, and if we have the stipulations deeded, will it transfer with no alcohol or tobacco sales? I had another question, and now I can't remember what it was, but also, all the concerns about the traffic and everything else has been mentioned, so that's really my only question right now. Thank you.
Thank you. John McLaughlin, and after that, Laura Jacobs.
Good evening. My name is John McLaughlin. I live on Kaye Clavel. Interesting point from the developer who lives in Beverly Hills with no 7-Elevens, but wants to live in Thousand Oaks where this 7-Eleven is. I'm actually a realtor in the area, and I show properties in this area, and I have to disclose to them any proposals. As soon as I say there's a proposal for a gas station and 7-Eleven on that corner, they don't want to look at the properties. They want to see other properties. I believe this proposal is going to have a detrimental impact on the properties in this area. I believe the noise, the fumes, the traffic have a detrimental effect. The opening hours, slightly different on the open hours, but that is going to allow 7-Eleven or whoever comes in there opportunities to load up, which is going to create noise. There's 2 bus stops directly opposite where this proposal is. As you drive out of Jasmine, if you try and make a left turn and there's a bus there, it's extremely difficult. So now even if there is a right turn only on the 7-Eleven, it's going to make it increasingly different. Alcohol, cigarettes, vapes, if there's a restriction on it now, they can apply for it at a later date, which is going to cause problems. I believe this proposal is directly targeting the kids of the high school, and this is going to allow other people to target the kids of the high school. I do not believe that this is a viable proposition in this area.
Thank you. Lori Jacobs, and after that, Mackenzie Bond.
Good evening. I'd like to thank our city staff for all their work and effort on our behalf in this, and just on explaining what's going to happen and what problems would be, and all of you for your attention and consideration of the issue. So the building setbacks are supposed to be 100 feet, and KA Jasmine is just 40 feet. That would maybe not be a big deal if these people didn't live 40 feet away from it. These are their private homes. They need to sleep at night. I find that reapplying with an offer to close from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. is a distinction without a difference. It really doesn't change the effect it's going to have on these people's ability to get a good night's sleep and have peace in their home at what is normally our quiet hours in this community. I attended one of the meetings with Mr. Megdal, and he told me that a 7-Eleven is absolutely necessary to add to that because a gas station simply cannot survive without something like that on its own today. I find that would be news to Shell 76 and the USA gas station that are 1 mile on each side of it. And I would hate to see a business such as this use their convenience store to draw more clients and perhaps cause one of those longtime businesses to have to close. I think it's great that we've been able to maintain that kind of normal gas station, and none of them have houses 40 feet away from them. When I spoke to Mr. Megdal, I asked him some very specific questions. I live about 1.5 miles away, so obviously this isn't in my backyard, but I go to a lot of school board meetings. I work with small children. I just have a concern for children and their health and safety and their education. It's just something I'm passionate about. So I found it interesting that when I asked him about alcohol and tobacco, he was very specific that the law won't allow them to do it, and therefore they will not break the law, because what would be the point of that? He didn't tell me that this applied only to the alcohol and not to the tobacco, which I was quite clear that I was referring to both in my conversation. I don't really appreciate the threat. I hope none of us appreciate the threat. If I don't get what I want here, I'm going to put up something ugly.
Thank
so
you.
I just want to point out that Thousand Oaks is a different sort of community, and that I'm so sorry. We won't go. So go ahead. It won't make it.
Thank you. Mackenzie Bond, and then Fani Adusmeli. Sameli.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Bond. I live right across. Oh, this is not for short people. I live right across the street.
You can move over if you like.
It's okay. I live right across the street, actually at the house where I had Mr. Peeper looking into our kitchen. And I go to Borderline Canyon Club usually 2 or 3 nights a week. And I get home really late, and even just like having people driving by, it kind of freaks me out. I always run straight into my house to make sure that nothing happens, because TO's always been a really safe community, and I feel like it wouldn't be very safe anymore. My little sister and a bunch of neighbor kids up the street all go to TO High School, and they all walk to and from school every day, so I just feel like, why have something there when there's a gas station half a mile down the road either way? And also, why are they trying to build something if they don't even have a person that's going to build it yet? They don't even have someone who's planning to build anything. They have to go interview all these people to find someone to do it, and they don't even have anything prepared yet. So, thank you.
Thank you. Fani Adusmeli, and I'm sorry I'm not doing well on your name. And then Jerry Vance.
By mistake, I came in. I'm not prepared, but yeah, I'm really opposed to this. That's pretty much.
I'm sorry. Can you state your name and city of residence?
Yeah, my name is Fani Adusmeli. I live in 391 Teasdale Street. Yeah, I'm really opposed to this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Vance, and then Paul Furcho.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Van Abe, and 61 years ago I was 7. I'm living at 392 Teasdale, which is across from Kumar, my neighbor. I'm 100% opposed to this project. I retired and went to live there full-time in 2005 after 28 years working for the state, retiring in the supervisor of correctional education at the California Correctional Institution in Tehachapi. I have literally read thousands and thousands of inmate central files. The inmates won't know they don't have booze and tobacco there. They're going to come there. The inmates, parolees, we hope, or not escapees, but they will come there, and they also know there's a high school there with a lot of potential victims. This is not a good idea, just from a crime standpoint. Now, from a personal standpoint, the noise, the traffic, the power outage from metallic balloons, that's enough to get the attention of all the neighbors in the neighborhood. We have enough problems. We don't need a 7-Eleven there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paul Furcho, and then Nils, hang on. Okay. So have I gotten everybody who wanted to do a public comment other than the applicant? I didn't miss anybody. I want to make sure I get everybody. Did you fill out a form? Jason Schulman? Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened here. It was right in my hand.
Again, Jason Schlumgen, Thousand Oaks resident. Just want to point something out I read recently from the National Association of Convenience Stores. In 2017, of all the top 10 store cigarettes that have most positive results of sales, the following is an overview of in-store revenue from products sold in stores. Tobacco, cigarettes, and other tobacco products, 34.1% of sales. Food service, including cold and dispensed beverages, 22.5%. Packaged beverages, soda pops, energy drinks, sports drinks, 15.8%. Rest of the store, the center of the store, candy, sweets, packaged alternative snacks, 10%. Beer, 12.5%. The C1 permit is there to provide for the needs of the neighborhood in which it's being built. Clearly, this is not needed by this neighborhood. I think it's pretty clear based on the signatures you guys have already had and also based on what was here today. So that's all I got for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now we'll go back to staff for follow-up comments.
Thank you, Chair McMahon. Thank you for all the speakers. Just a couple points of clarification from the speakers and comments in response to some of the statements made. The hours of operation are not suggested just to mirror the shopping centers to the north and to the south. The service station design guidelines recommend hours of operations for all uses other than the fueling to be limited to 7 to 9 on weekdays and 10 to 8 on Sundays. Staff's recommendation was essentially to follow that suggestion and recommendation by the service station guidelines. Ms. Vaughn stated concerns with potential light impacts. Just for clarification, that if this project does go forward, the city does have a technical review of all lighting proposals, and we review photometric drawings, which determine what the impacts are going to be and make sure that the light intensity zeroes out essentially near the property line. So there's no spillage beyond the property lines onto adjacent, in the residential area in this case. Mr. Corbett asked a question regarding the tanks. The tanks have been removed. The site was certified in March of 2014. Tanks were removed and the site was certified as being remediated. Ms. Sloat questioned whether or not the SUP, special use permit, conditions would transfer with the property, and they do transfer. The new property owner would be required to sign acceptance of those conditions to operate as the previous use did, or otherwise file a modification to that permit to seek a change. And then if there was a change, it would come back before this body. The majority of the other comments focused on the traffic impacts, and I'll let Ms. Naum speak to those.
Good evening. I have 4 comments I was going to address. First one, it was brought up that possibly that the right-in, right-out driveway will encourage more people to travel down Cali Jasmine, and was questioned if did we look at this, and the answer we don't think there'll be a substantial, even very many people will make that right on Cali Jasmine and wander through the neighborhood. That's not to say that some people won't. It is a beautiful neighborhood, but because this is a convenience store more in the neighborhood of where it's located, people will be coming and going. There's a very high passerby factor, so people will know where they're coming and going, and we don't think they'll be driving through Cali Jasmine neighborhood to find out how they're going to get out of the neighborhood. They'll be using the intersection. There is a comparison made to the Starbucks on Rancho and TOB. I actually don't think it's a very fair comparison. The Starbucks on Rancho and TOB does have its challenges, but it's a Starbucks with a drive-through with, it's not a service station, so I don't think that was an accurate comparison, that this will be very similar to the issues at Starbucks at Rancho and TOB. The question was, did we consider looking at the truck traffic that will be accessing the property? When we look at trip generation rates and impacts to the project, the trucks are part of the big picture. So no, we did not look at individual truck trips to the site, but it was considered as part of the overall trip generation rate to the site. And there was a statement made that the intersection of Cali Jasmine and Flores will eventually need some form of either stop control or a signal. As all intersections in the city, will continue to monitor it. Right now, it doesn't warrant it, and we don't see that much tremendous growth in the city in this vicinity that possibly would warrant it in the near future. With the 7-Eleven, that in itself will not warrant. There's a lot of driveway traffic the 7-Eleven will generate, but because of the high passerby factor, these are trips that are already in the community, and then they're just diverting from their trips wherever they're going into the 7-Eleven. So there won't be a tremendous increase in the overall number of trips in the whole area. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have questions of staff? Commissioner?
I got 2 quick questions, Mr. Kearns. What are the hours for the gas stations on Arbalez? Do you know? Do we have a restriction on those? I lived next to them for a long time, and I think they closed at 9, but I'm not sure.
I actually went today, just out of my own curiosity, and I went to a few of the gas stations. The gas station on Arbalez and Avenida de las Plantas opens at 6 a.m. and closes at 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The gas station on Arbalez and Moore Park opens at 5 a.m. and closes at 10 p.m. And the 76 station at Arbalez and Moore Park opens at 6 a.m. and closes at 10 p.m. And then I went down to the gas station at Jansen Moore Park, and they're open 24/7.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm glad you did that survey for me, anticipating that question. The other question I've got is the property directly to the south. I believe it's a medical office building or a burn unit or something along those lines. When that building was put up, were there restrictions on the hours for that one? I understand the old Jacopuzzi property had restrictions on the hours, obviously. But did they ask anything of the people directly to the south of this place?
Yeah, it was restricted to a closing hour of 9 p.m. as well.
I'm sorry?
9 p.m. was
9
the closing
p.m.?
hour.
Okay,
Yeah.
copy that. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Commissioner?
First off, thanks very much for your research on the hours. Much appreciated. Just for clarity, I want to be sure I understand about the 124-hour spot you mentioned. Do I understand correctly that there were a number of 24-hour gas stations in operation in Thousand Oaks prior to the adoption of the current standards in 1972, and the 24-hour operation was grandfathered in because those stations previously were permitted to operate around the clock.
There's a total of, as mentioned, there's 29 service stations in the city. 16 of those are located within 200 feet of residential where the hours of operation would kick in. 3 of those were authorized by permit to be open 24 hours.
Have any stations been approved for 24-hour operation that you know of since the current guidelines went into effect?
Actually, 2 of the 3 that I mentioned were approved under the current guidelines.
For 24-hour operation?
For 24.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
I did have one question, and it was triggered by something, one of the public comments. The deliveries, and I might have missed it in the report, are those restricted to certain hours, the deliveries of gas and supplies?
Yeah, I can't point to the exact condition number in the recommended 4B, but they're limited 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
I believe it's condition 66.
Oh, nice. Good memory. Okay. Do we have any other questions of staff? Okay. At this time, I will just mention that we received 13 comment cards, and all of them are opposed to the project. Just want that in the record. And then if there's no more comments or questions of staff, we will close the public hearing. No, I'm sorry. We have the applicant's 5-minute rebuttal. And at this time, any of your associates can come up and speak for 5 minutes.
Joins us for his rebuttal, which I'll give most of the time to him. I just want to note, this is a single tenant 7-Eleven. This isn't a shopping center. The Planning Commission is going to have a lot of authority over a CUP that's granted. I mean, you guys have oversight power. This is a 3-year almost test run on whatever you approve. And you can impose more cleanliness, more security, and a lot of other levers. So, and we would welcome that operationally. If you see there's a concern, and if you guys want to impose an additional something on us, or limit our hours after 3 years, that would be fine with us. But we will prove to you we won't need any of them. I'd also like to say one other note. I emailed Planner Kearns about his interpretation of the ancillary operations of a gas station. I am 99% sure that he is referencing a section that equates to lube shops, tire shops, and ancillary to the actual gas operations. A convenience store, which is defined as candy, soda, and cigarettes by the code, is considered in the service station. So actually the hours would default to the 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. I emailed him, and I still believe I'm right, and I don't know if Assistant Attorney Patrick Herr has weighed in, but you can see from the universe of gas stations that all the times the concessions are open exactly to when the gas is. So his interpretation doesn't make sense.
Hi, Paul Furcho, real estate manager for 7-Eleven. So obviously a lot of issues were just discussed totally at length. And the one thing I'll mention about cigarette sales, which hasn't been mentioned so far, is the consequences for the franchisee. So the reason why we have 5 stores currently today that have no violations whatsoever by us or the police that we could find is that if they get 2 violations within 2 years, they're forced to sell their franchisee, their business. And if they get a 3rd, they lose it altogether and we just take it over. So there's a big incentive for them to comply. And we give them the tools, too, with regards to our register system, where any sale of an age-restricted product, no matter what it is, the computer actually stops the sale and makes them either scan the ID. It also gives them the date that they need to look for. It actually works very well. And we also have a secret shopper program where we have unannounced visits once a month where they test the sales associates without identifying who they are. and then they go over the results with the district manager and the franchisee once a month. So with tobacco, we definitely take that seriously, especially as mentioned, the location of this 7-Eleven. Very quickly, the SIG sales for 7-Eleven in general are much lower as a percentage because NACS, or National Association of Convenience Stores, they're usually averaging just the typical convenience store that has Coke, Cheetos, cigarettes, right? Where 7-Eleven obviously has a lot more to offer than that. So as a percentage, we're much lower. The reason why Taylor really couldn't answer that question, though, is because there's something we call market basket. So when someone buys a pack of cigarettes, they usually also buy something else, like a sandwich or coffee or whatever. So the true impact of not having cigarettes available to sell is a little bit more involved than just percentage of cigarette sales. The reason why we don't have a franchisee is because the way our model works is 7-Eleven actually builds the store. And then once it's nearing completion, we go out and find a franchisee and we hand them the keys. So the franchisee is not involved in construction-wise. And the reason why we don't have a franchisee here today is because until we are certain the site's going to happen, we don't market sites to franchisees until we know that the site's going to happen. With regards to class action lawsuits, the one in Southern California was dismissed with prejudice last year, although there are many franchisee associations throughout the country, so maybe there's another one somewhere else, maybe on the East Coast. The monument sign, I was thinking of solutions as I was listening to the comments. The monument sign doesn't have to be on the corner. I did see through those pictures legitimate concerns as far as how that literally blocked the intersection. So we can move the monument sign off the corner. I'd be okay with that, of course. Delivery hours was already mentioned. We definitely work with the city on delivery hours because the whole purpose of this is to preserve the quality of life for the nearby residents as much as possible. So no one would argue against that. Traffic, I can just tell you I agree. Also that through the multiple 7-Elevens I've opened, since it's a convenience store, we're capturing people that are already there. Me as a customer, I'll drive 5 miles to go to a Costco. I'm not going to drive 5 miles to go to a 7-Eleven, okay? With regards to, I think environmental was already covered. Just so you guys know, 7-Eleven would never go to a location that was considered dirty. We're a multi-billion-dollar company, and that is way too much liability for us. So if the site is not clean, we're not going there. So, and that is my rebuttal. Thank you for listening.
Hold on one moment. Actually, you have 5 seconds. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Did you want to? I was just going to offer for questions, but if you want to continue. Did you have anything else? Okay. Do you have questions? I'm sorry.
Well, first, as a matter of process, is it okay to ask a question of the applicant during rebuttal?
Yes, that would be, now's the time before we close the hearing.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Furcho, for your comments. I just want to be sure that we're clear on the parameters of ownership and franchising and developing and land ownership. This gentleman to your left, to your far left, I'm sorry, Mr. Cox. Let me just make sure I understand who's doing what in the puzzle. Mr. Cox is the property owner, is that correct? His family has been the property owner?
As far as I'm concerned, all I care about is who I'm signing the lease with, and I'm signing the lease with Taylor.
All right. So if the commission approves the application, who is the property owner?
I'm going to assume that becomes Taylor.
Yes, that would be us. Okay, so Mr. Cox would sell his property to Mr. Megdal? Correct. All right. And then is it still called Southland Corporation, or is it 7-Eleven now?
No, it's 7-Eleven.
Okay. 7-Eleven.
Yeah, many years ago. Yeah.
Many years ago. You used to sponsor a bike racing team.
Mm-hmm.
I know it well. Anyway, 7-Eleven is a franchising operation. I presume that you have some business relationship with Mr. Megdal, the new property owner, correct?
So Taylor Magdal is a developer that 7-Eleven uses, and he will locate locations that we want to be at and build out the space for us, and we will sign a lease with Taylor.
Okay, so you would be the lessor.
Yes.
And Mr. Megdal would be the lessee. And then once the project nears completion, as you just testified, you would find a franchisee who would be 7-Eleven's licensee.
Correct, but as far as Taylor's concerned, the lease terms has to be adhered to by 7-Eleven. So the franchisee's not paying the rent or anything like that. It's 7-Eleven that's doing that.
I understand. You've got a system, and the franchisee, whoever that turns out to be, needs to abide by 7-Eleven's rules.
Correct.
Great. Okay, thank you for clarifying how the operation works. Nothing else.
That might be all the questions. Okay. Thank you. Okay. At this point, I think we will close the public hearing, and I will open up the floor for a motion or discussion. Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before raising any motion or making any other comments, I have another process question. This came up last time, and I just want to be sure we're clear with Mr. Heer. There was some discussion last time before we voted to continue without prejudice to a future date, whether we would be able to make that determination and whether we would be able to have a up or down vote or just basically hold the application in suspension. So my question is the same one as we had last time. Last time you said quite clearly, you've got enough material here, you've got enough evidence before you to make a determination. So my question is, are we at the same point after tonight's hearing? Are we able to make a determination?
Well, I will say that ultimately you have to decide if you have enough information to make a decision. I certainly think based on the fact that we've had 2 meetings on this matter and a lot of testimony from both the applicant and his team, from obviously various residents and other individuals who have come in to provide their comments, you certainly have information to make a decision. If you think there is something lacking, or typically what happens is when you think there's something lacking and there's a significant point that you need to obtain, you reach an agreement with the applicant to make a decision whether they want to continue the matter or not. In this case, if you were to consider something of that nature, and I'm not saying you are, but if you were, you'd actually have to open up the hearing again to talk to the applicant and get the applicant to discuss that ability to continue. And I bring that up simply because the applicant has the right to have the hearing today and have a decision today. And so it would be up to them ultimately to make a decision if you were going to consider continuance of some kind. But
right, but the question last time was whether continuation was our only option, and you stated at the last hearing for this applicant that we did have the option of making a determination.
Absolutely.
I think you're saying that's also true tonight.
Right.
Correct?
I just said I'm not a person who makes that kind of decision. So to me, I want you all to be comfortable that you have something. I haven't heard anything from any of you tonight that you're concerned about a question you don't have an answer to, other than maybe possibly 7-Eleven franchisee rules or something of that nature. But overall, I think you have enough information to, again, decide. But I can't make that determination for you as your attorney.
I understand 7-Eleven franchising much better than I did 3 minutes ago. So, I appreciate that. All right, thank you for answering that process question. I'll say that I want to see something on this corner. It's people on both sides of the issue, both the applicant and the neighbors have said they're concerned about the corner being a nuisance site. And I think that's something that there's some common ground on. I'd like to see this corner done. I mentioned at the last hearing that the neighbor of this site, Nadine Bartley, is my physical therapist and my personal friend. And I know that her business next door in the medical business has had some hardships because this site is undeveloped and has had some problems around that. So I think it's in the greater public interest to have something on this site. I don't think that's a very controversial thing to say. Before I go into the controversial part of my remarks, let me just clarify what we are and aren't talking about. Mr. Heher said earlier tonight that what we're voting on here is the application as configured before us. What we are not voting on is, as Mr. Megdal said, the gas station is, quote, the only reason we're here. We're not voting on a gas station. We're not voting on whether we like 7-Elevens or not. I actually agree with Mr. Huddleston. I think 7-Elevens can be quite good places. I've used many of them, and I like a lot of what 7-Eleven does. So this is not an up or down vote on whether we want to have a gas station or even whether we want to have a 7-Eleven or anything like that. We're not here because the property owner can do whatever they want if they get rid of either the 7-Eleven or the gas station. That's not the motion that's before us. The motion before us is here before us for and only for the reason that there are a significant number of variances where the application is out of spec from city code and city guidelines. That's why we're here. And on those grounds, I have a problem with the application as it's currently constituted. We're also not voting, let me say one more thing about what we're not voting on. We're not voting on tobacco grounds. I agree with you, Mr. Megdal, and I agree with Mr. Heher in the statements that tobacco, whether it is or is not allowed at this site, is explicitly out of scope. I appreciate what you've said about your willingness to not sell vaping products at this site. And I think I probably agree with you when you said, quote, you, Mr. Megdal, said, I wish this whole world was rid of cigarettes. I wish that too. In your communication to us on May 9th, you quoted some data from the Centers for Disease Control. The CDC also says that 2,000 high school students start smoking cigarettes, not vaping, every day in America. The CDC says 480,000 Americans die every year from tobacco use. 41,000 of those are secondhand smoke casualties. So I too wish this whole world was rid of cigarettes and that we should all not be part of that problem. But that's not what we're voting on tonight. We are voting on the application before us. And because there are such a large number of variances, it's very unusual for the city staff to take the position of recommending not denial. The issues before us tonight include places where the application is out of spec. These have to do with the metal roof, hours of operation that are outside the city's guidelines for gas stations, a proposed driveway on Calle Jasmine that would raise traffic concerns, and proximity to residential and other sensitive uses. All of those were identified by city staff as issues of concern. The specific areas where there's a variance as a matter of either law or guidelines are gas stations, hours of operations, and there's a variance from the city's architectural guidelines in terms of the design and materials used in the roofing structure of the building. That's unusual to have that many different variations. It's not just that an applicant comes to us and says we'd like this waiver or that waiver. It's the preponderance of the number of waivers in total that we look at as part of this application. And for that reason, I cannot support this application as currently considered. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to side with staff that we deny special use permit 2019-70299 based on the findings contained in the resolution. But again, I want to make clear that we really would like to see something done here. We asked you to come back to do something that would get this application to be in spec. And a 3-hour difference in the number of hours isn't really a substantial change. And so because this application is not in spec, I'm going to go ahead and move that we deny the application as currently constituted. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have some discussion on this motion?
I'm going to make this short and sweet. We went over this already a couple months ago. We got into the weeds on just about every topic, but I think the biggest issue that we were dealing with was the hours of operation, how we were going to deal with their neighbors, proximity to the other sensitive uses. We did talk about the history of kind of gas stations in that part of town. When I was going to high school in Thousand Oaks, I lived directly across from Keats and Arbalez, and there was a gas station in my residential neighborhood too. It wasn't open until 2 in the morning, and it's long gone now. So I understand that there may be a need for gas stations, there may be a requirement for them, but I also understand why people aren't as interested in having them in their backyard anymore. So much like once upon a time there was a Jacopuzzi Dairy across the street doing deliveries, this may be something that its time has come and gone. And 3 hours difference isn't enough to sway me at this point. So,
Commissioner? Yeah.
I first want to thank you again for trying to invest in Thousand Oaks. It's an amazing city, and I very much appreciate that. The difficulty, and I think Commissioner Newman kind of pointed it out, is I want to focus, and I always do, on what we can do and what we can't. One thing, Mr. Kidway was here earlier and asked us to consider somehow doing a district-wide vote, which again is beyond our scope. And the problem is that I don't want to become a legislator as part of this process. That's not our role. We actually enforce the rules. The rule that we're looking at has very specific guidelines. Some of the guidelines I look as the project will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare. Proposed use at the proposed location will be compatible with land uses in the vicinity. Those two areas create issues for me in terms of, again, just applying the rule. If I were to say that those were not a problem, then I would be legislating, in my opinion. So with those two in mind, I'm going to support the motion. To the extent you want to appeal that and make it a legislative issue, that's for the City Council. But again, our role as part of this Planning Commission is to apply these rules, and if we start applying them in a capricious and vague way, it creates a lot more problems in terms of trying to figure out what the rules say. And that's not what I agreed to do, and I don't want to go beyond that. So again, I appreciate everything you've done. I know you're frustrated. Believe me, I can see all the effort and time and energy you've put into this process. You've modified stuff. And by the way, another thing Commissioner Newman pointed out, we're not negotiators here. We actually can't go back and forth and start changing terms on the fly. That's something, again, we recommend you guys do with the staff, and bring a final project to us that we can actually say yes or no to. Because again, this is a public process. We have to make sure everybody here has a chance, and everybody at home has a chance to be involved and engaged in that process to make sure it's fair and transparent. So for that reasons, I'll support the motion.
Thank you. I did want to make a comment myself. I have no issue with the high school kids going over and getting a Slurpee after school. That's fine with me. It's fine for me to have a gas station there. But two things really bother me. One is it didn't seem that much to ask that you make it compatible with the neighborhood as far as the roof. You said it wasn't a cost issue. It just seems to me that that's something the city staff feels very strongly about. It's part of our city code is that we make it compatible visually. And that you wouldn't do that strikes me as interesting. And the other thing is the hours. The neighborhood around there, the other businesses, I just don't think we can extend the hours. And so I'm going to support the motion that we deny this project. Are there any other comments? Okay. You need to push the button, the motion button.
Madam, may I make one more comment?
Yes.
I want to echo something Commissioner Lanson said in the way of thanks and gratitude, both to the applicant and your team, and to every resident and community member who came to speak tonight, pro and con. Your input, pro and con, whether we agree, we don't agree, is very important, and all of us here are very grateful for you coming together to have your say. So thank you for that. With that, I hit the motion button. Thank you.
Can the secretary please prepare us for a vote?
Right, so just because the way that the motion comes up on the screen, just understand. So let me just, for the record, you heard Mr. Newman's motion. It's to approve staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission deny special use permit 2019-70299 based on the findings contained in the attached resolution, which is attachment 4. So that is the motion that you're voting on. So affirming that is to vote for denial.
Mr. Buss's confusion may come from that the screen says
we understand.
The request is to allow.
We understand.
But a yes vote means to deny, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Motion carries 4-0. Commissioner Cohen is recused.
Okay. Thank you all for your patience. Oh, yes. Excuse me. Any aggrieved party who wishes to appeal to the Planning Commission's decision may do so by filing an appeal with the Community Development Department within 10 days. All right. Does the commission want to take a short break? Okay. Short break, please. Okay, I think we're ready to resume our meeting with item 7C. Will the clerk please open the public hearing?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 7C, case number RPMN 2019-70065, to allow the demolition of an existing single-family dwelling and construction of an approximate 4,000 square foot two-story single-family residence where the second floor area exceeds 75% of the original building footprint, located at 1408 Red Sail Circle. The applicants are Scott and Sandra Alderton.
With that, Chair, Mr. Berrigan is back again to present item 7C. And with that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
Good evening, Chair McMahon and members of the Commission. I am Steve Berrigan, the project planner for this case. As mentioned for your consideration tonight, a residential plan development minor modification application has been filed to allow the demolition of the existing two-story single-family residence and attached garage and construction of a 4,003 square foot two-story single-family residence where the second floor exceeds 75% of the original building footprint. Precise plan of design guidelines establish guidelines and standards for evaluating new residential development throughout the city. In this case, the guidelines specify that rebuilding a residence where the proposed second-story floor area exceeds 75% of the original building footprint requires Planning Commission review. This is an overall map of the vicinity. Note the proximity between the Ventura and Los Angeles County line. This slide is an aerial of the parcel with the existing residence. In 1967, the Planning Commission approved PD 640 and Tract 1954. In 1969, Commission approved a modification which established overall development standards, including setbacks. With that said, PD 640 and Tract 1954 is commonly known as Westlake Island or just the island. There are a combination of factors which make the island separate and unique, make the island a separate and unique residential area within the city. Such as being located inside a gated community, its private streets, and common ownership of surrounding water amenities, which leads to another fact is the only way to gain access to this community is through a bridge, one way in, one way out. The island is divided between the Ventura and Los Angeles County lines. Once you're in the community, making a left onto onshore, Oak Shore, as opposed to a right, you are in Los Angeles County side of the lake. The subject request is to allow for the construction of a 4,003 square foot two-story single-family residence. The two-story residence will have 4 bedrooms, 4 full baths, media room, kitchen and great room, and a 2-car garage. This is a street view of the existing residence. The single-family residence as proposed is consistent with the underlying Plan Development Permit 640. Also, as noted within the staff report, the Westlake Island Architectural Committee has approved the plans. This slide demonstrates the street view elevation of the proposed residence. For comparison, this table demonstrates recently approved single-family residences and remodels located on the island, which are similar to the proposed residence in terms of floor area, height, and setbacks. Our project is included within this list in bold. The proposed residence is approximately 29 feet in height with a 31-foot tower element. The standard RPD height requirement is 25 feet. However, municipal code allows administrative approval of up to 50% increase in height in residential zones if it is consistent with the surrounding development. As shown on the previous table, 29 feet is an established height within this community. To circle back to the beginning of the presentation, PPD design guidelines specify that rebuilding a residence where the proposed second-story floor area exceeds 75% of the original building footprint requires Planning Commission review. These are some surrounding residences within the neighborhood. It has been determined that the proposed project qualifies for a Class 2 exemption. The proposed single-family residence complies with the previously adopted plan development permit standards of PD 640. The residence will be comparable to those previously approved within the immediate vicinity of the project area. The new residence would be consistent with the development pattern in the Westlake Island neighborhood, and the applicant has also received approval from the Westlake Island Architectural Committee for the proposed two-story residence. It is recommended that Planning Commission approve RPD 2019-70065 based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval in the attached resolution. And before staff concludes, a supplemental memorandum with attached correspondence has been provided. Also, properties within 500 feet were notified. Staff is available for any questions.
Commissioner?
Thank you for your report. I just want two quick questions with regard to some of the information. In the staff report, you indicate 31 feet, but in condition 5, it says 30 feet 11 inches. I just want to make sure we have a consistent number as to exactly what that height is. Is it 31 feet?
We rounded up. 31.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's consistent. Speaking of which, condition 15 says 7 to 7, and I think the HOA letter said 7 to 5 per day in terms of the work. Again, just want to make sure it's consistent as to exactly making sure they're complying with the HOA rules. Is that something I should have the applicant talk about? 7 to 5, okay. So I think they have to change then condition 15 to make it 7 to 5. But the applicant can speak to that. I have nothing further.
Commissioner, did you have a question or two?
I just have one question for my edification. Thank you for the presentation. You gave a few examples of homes of similar size. I was just curious if this is this going to be the tallest one?
The majority of the roof is 29 feet. The tower element is 31 feet.
Yeah, in the examples you gave, none of them were up above 31 feet. I was just curious if there are any in the area that are.
With regards to the tower element, there's another tower element on Red Sail that's about 35 feet.
The one on the far side of the cul-de-sac?
I think the one at the very end.
I didn't have a tape measure, but I was curious. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Commissioner?
Thanks for your presentation. Just two quick questions. One is there's a grading plan, and I'm wondering if any cut or any net import or export of soil is contemplated? Or is that a question for the applicant?
I think that would, the architect is here to answer any
Okay,
questions regarding
thanks.
the grading.
The other is a legal question. This is probably something for Mr. Heher. I noticed in the approval letter from the Property Owners Association on the island that it's addressed to the Scott and Sandra Alderton Family Trust, whereas our resolution mentions the applicant as being you personally, Scott and Sandy Alderton. And I'm wondering if there's any issue with a difference between the names. I'll ask the applicant who the property owner is, but if I assume it's in the name of the trust, if there's an issue with the resolution just naming the individuals.
There's no issue there. It's going to be the same, so I think we're okay.
All right, thank you. Nothing further.
Are there any other questions? Okay. At that point, we have the applicant and their representatives, Tom Cohen, Scott and Sandra Alderton, and Brooks Dunn. You have 15 minutes. Please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening. I'm Scott Alderton, and this is my wife, Sandy Alderton. We're going to be mercifully brief.
Your city of residence for the record.
Oh, the residence is at 1408 Red Sail Circle. We reside right now at 1080 Finrod Court in Westlake Village. The residence is at 1408 Red Sail Circle in Westlake Village. We're here today with our architect, Brooks Dunn, who can answer questions both about that tower element and about the soil grading issues that you've raised, and our counsel, Tom Cohen. I'd also like to just take a moment and thank Mr. Berrigan for his many hours of hard work on our project and supporting us. We are very appreciative of the city's efforts on our behalf. We moved out to Thousand Oaks about a year and a half ago after spending a lot of time in the San Fernando Valley, raising our children there. We've been very much enjoying being in this community and being in Westlake Village, and we're looking forward to building our home on the island and moving in there and being a good member of that community. We believe it's a house that we're going to be proud of and the neighborhood is going to be very proud of. You have before you in the record a number of letters from our neighbors that support the project, and I don't believe anybody has opposed the project. And as Mr. Berrigan has noted, the project, notwithstanding the fact that it deviates from some of the Thousand Oaks city codes, is very consistent with the character and nature of the island itself. And we appreciate your time and your efforts, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Scott and Sandy. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Tom Cohen. I'm here on behalf of Scott and Sandy and their application this evening. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks. And I, too, want to extend my thanks to Steve Berrigan and staff for his report and the support for the project from city staff. Steve worked very hard and masterfully guided us through this process. The Westlake Island is a unique residential community with varying architectural styles and designs. The pictures that you saw, I think, demonstrate that. And Brooks' design is exceptional and in keeping with the Alderton's vision and the function they are seeking, as well as in keeping with the homes that have been renovated and rebuilt over the years throughout the island. My parents owned a home on the island that was what you might have called contemporary in 1968, and today looks very old and tired, much like I think what you see with the Alderton's current home. 3 points I want to make. The home complies with the previously approved plan development permit standards and the Westlake Island architectural guidelines. As you heard, the Westlake Island Property Owners Association has approved the residence. Second, the proposed design and size of the residence is comparable to those previously approved within the vicinity of this project, and 5 of the Alderton's neighbors submitted letters in support that recognize that. And third, we accept each of staff's recommended conditions of approval. So we respectfully ask you tonight for your support, and we are available to respond to any questions that you may have. And I know there was a question about grading. I think Brooks, our architect, is looking for that information right now, but if there's anything else, I'd be happy to respond.
Commissioner?
Mr. Cohen, thank you. There was just one question I had with regard to the timing of construction, because again, I think the HOA said 7 to 5 in its letter, and you had 7 to 7. Are you okay with 7 to 5?
Well, we're going to abide by the Property Owners Association's requirements. The city was gracious in giving us a couple extra hours a day, but we've got to live within the HOA's requirements.
Great. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other commissioner questions?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
I do, yeah. Just if the information is available about grading, whether there's any cut and fill as part of the.
We don't have that information available, but perhaps
It could be that soil is just being redistributed around the plot.
The plan at Brookston, I'm the architect. I'm a resident of Venice. My office is in Santa Monica. And before I start into the answer, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the chair and the committee for being here so late. And also thank Steve for his efforts and his patience answering questions as we went through this process. I really do appreciate that. Don't have the quantities memorized. The intent is to be as minimal on the site as we can be. We are going to excavate down, properly compact the soil before we put the house back. But the plan is not to reshape the grade, reshape the, change the elevations of the pad. It's just to do what we need to do to put the foundations in for the house.
We're not talking about significant numbers of truck trips in or out.
Yeah, no.
All right. Thank you.
Are there
I'd be
any other?
happy to answer any other questions.
I have a quick question as well. From an architectural standpoint, is it an architectural feature to have that tower? Is it a usable space, observant tower?
That tower is actually a functional feature. It's in the center of the roof, and there is a roof monitor at the top of it, and it's at the top of the staircase that's at the center of the house. There are a couple of different functions that's doing for us. It allows indirect light, that is light without heat gain, into the stairwell, which gets natural light into the center of the house. There are motorized operable windows at the top of the tower. So when those windows are open, and if you open windows on the lower, the first or the second floor, you get stack effect ventilation, which will hopefully minimize the amount of time you actually have to run the air conditioner. And the height is a functional relationship to get the windows in at the top, the slope that the HOA requested from us on the main roof, and then to waterproof everything. So.
Great, thank you.
That was a good question and a good answer. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have any speaker cards. Is that correct? No speaker cards? Okay. Any comments from staff?
Staff has no further comments at this time.
All right. Technically, you guys have 5-minute rebuttal if you want to rebut anything that we've said. Okay. At this point, I guess we will close the public hearing, and I will open up the floor for a motion and/or a discussion. Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was actually walking the property the other day, and a bunch of neighbors came up and were so excited to hear that there's going to be something done with this property. Excited about the designs. Looks great. So I would suggest we go ahead and move to approve RPMN 2019-70065 based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval. The attached resolution which was number 4 to the materials.
Did you push the button? Okay. Are there any comments to the motion?
I've got one. I just want to thank you guys for staying here so long and being last on our list. I'm sorry you lost the coin toss.
All right. Anything else? All right. Then would you please prepare us for a vote?
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, well, it was worth the wait, right? All right. Any aggrieved party who wishes to appeal the Planning Commission's decision may do so by filing an appeal with the Community Development Department within 10 days. And I think that's good, right? Item 8, department reports. It appears we have no reports.
That is correct.
Item 9, commission comments and AB 1234 reports. Commissioner?
I know there's there are no spectators left, but I have a request, a process request of the general public. I know we're still on TOTV, which is that if you have comments outside of meetings for the commission, please send them through staff. The appropriate venue, the appropriate channel to do that is through staff. Do not try to contact us individually. It then becomes an ex parte communication. We're obliged to disclose it. It can taint the hearing. The proper way to do that is to get in touch with staff, and they will relay your comments to us. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. No upcoming issues. We have a Planning Commission meeting, a special meeting of the Planning Commission scheduled for July 29th. And that will take place during what would normally be your summer break.